Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Church, episode 55. Just want to welcome everyone for 55 weeks in a row of radical openness, cannabis-based knowledge being shared, being dropped, we're all learning at the same time, really. So I just want to thank everyone for showing up again. We got a whole schwack of people in the chat room right now, and that's always wonderful. And I'm sure probably here in the near future, once I send out these links, we'll see some of our local friends, probably starting with Etienne. So there goes the Facebook links, and there goes the email links. And I'll bring that back. Ooh, save room, save room. Oh, I've got room for you, brother. That was Aaron, I believe, from DNA just hitting me up. You'll be good, brother. You'll be good. Welcome, Etienne. How are you doing this fine Sunday morning?
Good morning, Bubbleman. How are you?
You know, I'm doing pretty good. I'm starting to get excited about the Jamaican Cannabis Cup.
You should. A lot of excitement going around right now, you know, with cannabis and that's going to be exciting. This week, ready for updates?
Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting. I saw you guys had some things going on in California there. I guess your governor made some signatures, and did he choose not to sign certain things? Is that what happened?
He signed all cannabis bills, but he did veto the hash oil bill that was going to make it more of a felony. He felt that there's no need to make more crimes in California, which is really surprised because he's been very much a supporter of the industrial prison complex, needless to say. But it was nice to see that. He did sign all three bills, so we will have regulation coming to California. Again, it's not perfect. Nothing I'm completely happy with, nor a lot of people, but it's a start. It's a working regulation when we get to work, and I'm finally legal in the state of California, which I already was, but. And the big thing was we celebrated. We had a big party for our 16th year. So oldest dispensary in the United States. So we are very proud and very thankful to carry on and continue the tradition. And we look forward to another 16 plus years now with depending on how the regulations and everything go. So we're very excited.
You know, thanks to back in the day, she came by. Debbie came up here with a few people from the Berkeley Patients Group. This must have been 16 plus years ago, literally in the beginning. And so I've always felt like, even though I've never been down to Berkeley's patient group, I've always felt a connection through Hillary with Debbie. That I don't know. It's just always felt like, even before I knew you, I just always felt like that those are allies. You know, those are our allies down there. So it's cool to think almost 20 years has gone by. And I want to welcome Mr. D420K into the room there, wearing his bubble bag shirt today. Look at that. How you feeling, buddy?
I'm sore as hell, but I don't know. I got to go see a chiropractor, get an MRI done next week. My back hurts, but I'll get through it.
You know, it's good for a back problems, right?
Bong rips.
There you go.
Of course.
Oh, I'm just using the last of this cream that Tony gave me, this CBG cream. Oh, man, was this the shit right here.
You smoke it or apply it?
Apply it. I applied it on my back this morning.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll do a bong rip to that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, all right, I'll do the bong rip. I have recently picked up the new Halo Sapphire dish, although they did also send a quartz one. Sorry, that's silicon carbide. That's not the quartz one. Here's the quartz one right here. There's the silicon carbide and the quartz, and then the sapphire. Have I taken only one rip out of that yet? So, have you been?
What do you think of the Sapphire now? I've been using it for about a month now, and I am beyond peachy happy.
Well, I've always preferred Sapphire. I have, of course, these two inserts, which were originally what I was hitting off of Sapphire. One that did not have the grooves. This one actually has a little sort of moat that runs around it. And I've always felt like the taste was more preserved on the Sapphire. But for the discs, one of the things that I found a little bit weak sauce was that you weren't really able to torch them to clean them, and you didn't want to scrape them too hard. So it was kind of like, okay, I figured out a way to heat it up. I'd get my nail heated up, and then I'd lower the temperature and I'd give it a little blow. But with this one, with the dish, what I've been doing is I have 2 D-nails set up, one at 550 degrees Fahrenheit, one at 950 degrees Fahrenheit, and I take a rip at 550 or 2, and then once the dish is, you know, what looks to be very contaminated, it's very dark and there's the oils are sitting in there, I then just plug it into my second unit, takes it up to 950, cleans it in usually under 10 minutes, and then of course I'm also using the Q-tip Tech, which for those of you that haven't used it, it's quite something. You just burn a hit in your bowl and then take the Q-tip and wrap it around, and you'll literally see 80 to 90% of that carbon dust pick up on the Q-tip and be relieved. So I have enjoyed that. Great taste. I mean, you know, we talk so much about extraction processes, and we talk so much about, you know, terpenes and adding terpenes, and we've got Mark Scialdone, who just showed up, who's our resident chemist and shares all the wonderful science with us, also our resident musician and our resident fish head and our resident many things. He's a man of many hats, so let's not try to put him in too small of a corner. But yeah, I just find that it makes sense for us to be discussing heat sources and how it affects or preserves or destroys these delicate terpene compounds, and I'm certain that heat is not just heat, and maybe there's some science behind that. Mark, why does it taste different off of titanium at the exact same temperature as it tastes off sapphire?
Yeah, so a lot's happening on that surface, and the chemistry that the surface is made out of is certainly a factor that plays into the chemistry that happens, and the temperature, and the fact that these things are being heated up in the presence of air. You know, if air wasn't around, if oxygen wasn't in air, well, obviously we couldn't breathe. But if you can do this type of heating at an elevated temperature in an oxygen-free environment, you'll see a very, very different set of chemistries going on, because a lot of these organic compounds are not only just fragile at room temperature, they're accelerated, their fragility is accelerated when they're heated up, and especially in the presence of air, because these things love to react with oxygen and love to react with air, and will start decomposing. And some of that crud that you're seeing on your nail, Mark, that black carbonaceous material, you know, not everything that comes out of the cannabis plant is going to be volatile. Certainly some of the fatty acids and some of the lipids, rather than being volatile where they would heat up and then create essentially a vapor, these things, I mean, think of cooking oil. Cooking oil doesn't just simply evaporate. It heats up, and then eventually it reacts with the air and it decomposes, which is why you can't use frying oil again and again and again, because the double bonds in some of these molecules react with air and create rancid molecules. And so that's why if you leave olive oil out on the counter, it will go rancid. But when you heat up the oils, these degradation processes really accelerate. And when you do so at nail temperatures, I mean, man, you're taking something from room temperature up to multiple hundreds of degrees where yeah, a lot of the most fragile compounds are going to start rearranging or doing chemistry to. I think that one of the things that I keep on seeing is this misquoting of what the boiling point of THC is, and I saw recently on another highly regarded analytical laboratories website that serves the industry, their boiling point of THC is incorrectly reported. You know, when Meshulam isolated THC, he did so in a distillation, and he's able to calculate the boiling point of THC because he actually isolated it in a distillation. And as that THC was boiling and it passed by the thermometer in his distillation head, he was able to read the temperature, and the temperature that he was able to read, I think it was I want to say it's I'll pull this up. I have the paper right here. It's extremely important that this information gets out and gets out accurately. So he reports a boiling point of tetrahydrocannabinol in 1964 in his Journal of the American Chemical Society paper of 155 to 157, but that's under a high vacuum pressure of 0.05 millimeters of mercury, which is under a very strong vacuum pump, because the more he pulls vacuum on it, the less he has to heat it up. So if it boils at that temperature under a vacuum of 0.05 mercury, which again, 155 to 157, just to calibrate your eyeball, is about 315 Fahrenheit. So at atmospheric pressure, the boiling point of THC is greater than 315 degrees Fahrenheit. And I hate when I see High Times and other leading information sources, including the analytical laboratories, and you know who you are incorrectly reporting the boiling point of tetrahydrocannabinol. And they need to stop doing that, because this misinformation needs to stop. Okay, rant over.
And is that happening because of the vacuum, the confusion in the vacuum? Oh, you're muted, Mark. Sorry.
I'm muting myself. So think about it. When they're pulling vacuum on it, you have to heat up the compound a whole lot less. And the reason why organic chemists do that is because some of these compounds are really fragile, so we don't want to really heat them up to their true boiling point, which is what we would have to do at atmospheric pressure. I mean, think of a steam distillation where you're not pulling vacuum, you're heating it up to essentially the boiling point of water, which is 100 degrees centigrade or 212 Fahrenheit. So if you're heating something to its boiling point in the presence of no vacuum, that's its true boiling point at sea level. That's affected very slightly, say, at Denver, which is a mile high, because you have less atmospheric pressure. It boils, water boils at a slightly lower temperature, but you don't have to worry about that. I think the most important thing is when you're pulling vacuum and you're distilling something under vacuum, you have to heat it a whole lot less, right? Because you're sort of pulling that stuff over into vacuum, right? So the point is that THC at atmospheric pressure on the nail does not boil at 315. It boils at some temperature higher than that, and I don't exactly know what that temperature is, but it is in the literature, and I'll try to see if I can dig it out and get it out next week.
So, Mark, one of the things I've noticed about my Sapphire is the depth of flavor. I get a depth of the flavonoids and definitely of the terpenes that I have never gotten on any other type of surface. So is it because of the surface is so locked that it doesn't allow any of the seepage in, which I'm aware that it does slightly with titanium because it has that slightly porous to it, so it kind of soaks in a little bit, whereas I don't get any of that with the Sapphire itself. Do you notice the depth of flavor, Bubbleman?
Oh, like I said, dude, what I call it is a preserved flavor. It's way deeper because there's more preservation going on. Whatever's happening with these other nails at similar temperature, they just seem to have a more violent reaction than the reaction that happens on the Sapphire dish. So I don't know exactly what's going on with the chemistry, but I can guarantee my bioassay is correct and accurate in the sense that if a chemist took it and did the math and did all that chemistry and figured it out, they would see there's something going on here. There's a preservation of terpenes. The flavor is completely undeniable. It just goes deeper and lasts longer and tastes better.
Yeah. So here's the good news. We're setting up basically a facility to basically look at this. We want to really explore this. You know, I work for the folks who sell the ceramic nails, Hive, and they're very interested in understanding the difference in different surfaces of different nail materials to see, again, what profile, different temperatures, perhaps different application rates, because that's the one thing I've noticed is that sometimes a smaller dab of the same material tastes very, very different than a much larger dab of the same material. And that's because I think you're getting a lot more degradation in your hit because you're just overloading the stuff on the nail and you're just getting this huge plume of degradation. Has anyone else noticed that? If you take a smaller hit, you can get a different flavor.
To a
Without a
degree,
doubt.
I've noticed that. I mean, I noticed that when I put on a lot, I can get a better taste off Sapphire because there's just more there to get. So when I was taking smaller hits, I was like, wow, this is incredibly flavorful. Like, at least, I don't know, I'd say maybe 20% more flavorful. But that was just reasonable hits. Once I started putting on large hits, on the Sapphire in particular, on a nice low temp, like around 550 Fahrenheit, first of all, the hit took like about 2 full minutes to finish. I was getting about 10 to 15 rips off of it, and the flavor from those first 3 or 4 rips was, it just felt like it was basically like a low temp terp vape. That's what it basically was like.
Yeah, I noticed that with just a small dab, you definitely get the flavor, but with the larger, it definitely bubbles and pulls. But because it's such a hard surface, you can take it and roll it around the bowl, and it rolls around evenly and doesn't disappear, such as on the titanium nail, if I had something like that, or the silicon carbide. It really tends to stay together, as well as the flavor just so deep and so rich. Yeah, so talk to your eye people about other types of substances that, definitely harder seems to be the third. I've not necessarily messed with ceramics so much as straight with quartz and titanium and the sapphire and the silicon carbide. So I guess I still need to try some ceramic, but I've heard that ceramic, because it is so non-porous, it also gives a great flavor. But I've tried the other nail head, the dish inside the ceramic dish, and the ceramic dish inside the stick nail did not taste anywhere near as flavorful as the sapphire itself, in my opinion.
I invited the guys from D-Nail in earlier. I was kind of hoping at least one of them would make it. I haven't heard from Brian in a while, but Stevie I was talking to earlier on Facebook and hoping that he would come in and sort of share what they've been, because it's really, these are the guys that are pushing this. There's no other company that's moved into Sapphire. These guys have really sort of pushed the boundaries of what we vaporize off of, and I think that it's a very important factor. You have this stick, and at one end of the stick is, let's preserve our terpenes, let's grow the best herb possible, let's use extraction processes that are going to affect the terpene and the cannabinoid profile the least, let's leave the least footprint behind, let's do things the best that we can. And then on the other end of the stick you have, okay, but what are you going to inhale those phytocannabinoids off of? What temperature are you using? What is the surface area that you're hitting off of? All of these things become sort of important factors, variables in that final experience that you're going to get. We may even realize later on that these terpenes are incredibly important to stay as they are in the not only recreational but the medicinal aspect of the plant. We've talked about the modulating effects that terpenes can have on cannabinoid profiles and on single phytocannabinoids, like Skunkman Sam was talking about last week when him and Rob were taking pure THC and then modulating it with the effects of single terpenes. I think that it's definitely as important of a part of the stick over here as the one that most of the community focuses on, which is over here, which is grow and nutrients and processing and processes and curing and all of these things. It's like, what does it matter if you're just going to throw it onto a like a nasty titanium nail that's like at 850 degrees or something? It seems to defeat the purpose, let's say.
Yeah, everything changes at that temperature. Everything changes. You can't keep it from changing. It's yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why, again, I had actually had this discussion with Sam offline about the merits of GC. He was saying, well, since we all smoke it anyway, it's going to be heated up anyway, so we really only care about what's being, what's coming off the plant at elevated temperature or coming off the nail at elevated temperature. But right. Mark, what I was going to say before, again, if you're taking like dry sift and you're doing a lot of dabbing of sort of like less purified product, a lot of those fatty acids are going to decompose and create that carbon crud that lines the surface of the nail and sometimes starts looking iridescent, right? You could actually see like rainbow spectrum colors, sort of in the iridescent crud on your nail?
Yes. I figured I would hit a bowl while we were giving that explanation and show that crud appearing on the... Excuse me, God, is that tasty.
But I also get residue, and I use BHO and rosin. I don't necessarily do like you with the the straight amazing bubble. I just don't have access to it like you do. I wish it did, but that's just the reality of access. That's the...
What that might say, Etienne, is even in a BHO product where, again, most of the product that's in there, because it's been extracted in an organic solvent, is likely to be volatile, likely to have a volatility. The kinetics, the speed at which it's heated up, and the rate at which it's exposed to oxygen at elevated temperatures, you're going to have competing processes of either volatilizing, which is what you want to do, or getting some background degradation.
Right.
No matter what you do, I think you're going to get degradation.
There's definitely an oxidization that's happening that leaves a residue regardless, be it the wax, the lipids, something is definitely for sure.
Oxidation, not oxidization, oxidation.
Correct. Yeah, so it's just from like one of those things that's always been a problem with cannabis, and especially problems when we put it into bags and close it up, then we start to get the aerobic decomposition, you know, and things like that. So I've always agreed that we needed to see the snapshots. When we started to get into the science in 2007, of course, the first access was GC. And, of course, we thought initially as well, it's like, hey, great, you know, all we need to know is what we're burning. But when I started to talk to other laboratories, when we started doing satellite testing, we started to have UVH PLC, and then I could see the snapshot before. I thought the combination of the two was the exact science, because I needed to see, one, what was there beforehand. I needed to see everything as possible in its acid forms to see what actually happens when it transfers. And from that, we found when we have too much CBN, we know that the product's degrading. And so we started to learn these different aspects through science. But I agree, and I'm still a big fan of UVH PLC, you know, to see absolutely everything that we possibly can inside the plant. I still agree GC is definitely good science, but I think the combination of the two gives us the best snapshot that we can as we try to understand these thousands of, you know, bastardizations that we're dealing with in cannabis currently.
Indeed, Leo. Sorry, I'm like sending messages and stuff. I get a lot of messages during Hash Church from a lot of different varieties, and it's hard to multitask while you're chain smoking full melt resins, which I should thank the West Coast Concentrate crew.
You just don't need to apologize. You do it every week, dog. You're amazing. You do it high, multitask. Not only that, you moderate over in the side. You have to kick people. Then you get people inquiring. Then you have people who didn't make it on, who are saying, "Hey, maybe this, that way, and the other." So,
oh, I know. I had a good.
Man, seriously, kudos for holding it down. We're trying to keep the discussion. I kind of fucked up there because I didn't keep the conversation going as much as.
Oh, you're doing great too. You guys are. I appreciate you coming in as early as you do. You know, today I had planned to get Subcool on to come and talk with us, and I had talked with Mr. Soul from Brothers Grimm, the original breeder of C99, Cinderella 99, and Apollo 13, and he's unfortunately going to a wedding, and Subcool's internet satellite is down, and I never heard back from Old Timer, from Overgrow, and Cheryl, who was going to come tell us about Haley, is unable to make it because she just has zero internet. So I was like, wow, like, I'm trying to bring people in, but it's hard because life is...
That's everyone, and you literally had all those up as the come on in to Cash Church today. And yeah, that's odd that usually one cancels, but all?
You know what? I like this go with the flow thing, and I think the more that I do it, the less that I'll stress out. I mean, the bottom line is there's wonderful information in all of our heads about this plant, whether it's about the past and the old school stories, or whether it's about the present and what we're going through now, or whether it's about the future, where we're trying to get to. It's exciting, and people want to hear it, so it really doesn't matter what we talk about. Sometimes I just have to push the stress back a little bit, because I feel like a stress sometimes that I want to give the best hash church that I could possibly give. Like, I want it to be the best one every week so that people can leave and go and be inspired and do something. You know what I mean? Not just
people hear you, they see what you do, and each church it has gotten better. Not everyone can be as spectacular. We can't have Rob Clark and Sam on every week. Lord knows, Rob, Sam, if you're listening, we would gladly have you on every fucking week. We love you guys, respect you greatly. I don't know. I met you years ago, Sam, when I was with Todd, but it was briefly. And but Rob, happy to call you friend and look forward to seeing you next time you're in town. But regardless, you have done everything possible, as well as the panel, to find people and bring people in. I've tried to find people and had commitments too, and had them completely flake, you know. So it's just the reality of 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning as well.
Right?
Which is so odd, you know. This is, you know, for an atheist like me to be up at 9 a.m. to go to church. If I tell my friends that, they'd be like, "What the fuck? What did you say? What did you say?
Great
Are you
thing
high?
is,
Oh, you can get high?"
it is different every time. It should be different every time. You know, if it's not different every time, it's going to get boring and redundant. No one's going to watch.
It's true enough. And right now we literally have 540 people watching, so I appreciate all of you guys and all the people that will watch afterwards. We'll try to put out some wonderful information, and I guess most importantly is to pay attention to the chat. We got lots of people talking in the chat, pros and cons of Healthstone. People ask questions. People have things that they want to know. It's not always the right time to answer your question, so if you're asking a question that's not getting answered and you've asked it a few times, I always tell people, if you really have an urgent question, like, put it all in capital letters. We will see it, and if we answer it, that means it's time to answer it. And yes, polyploidism question is not to be answered today. I would rather have Skunkman Sam or Rob Clark ask her. You want an expert to answer that question, so that's why I haven't answered that particular one. But yeah, guys.
Speaking of Healthstones, have you tried Healthstones before?
I have, yes. You know, and it. I guess the original Healthstone for me was Jason Lee, the glassblower, years before I heard of the Healthstone. He made me these little glass screens, and they were frit balls, the tiniest little balls ever, all melted together to make what looked like, from a distance, if you saw it, it looked like what an ecstasy pill looked like in the 90s. It was kind of like a little, the same size as an aspirin, but a little taller. And I was like, what the hell is this? He sent me like 4 of them, and he's like, they're like glass frit bowls. Like, you can just drop oil onto them or drop your melty hash onto them, and then have a rip that way. And that was kind of the first time I smoked something that was, because when I smoked the Healthstone years later, I literally was like, oh my God, this is so much like the, of course, Jason Lee, right, ahead of his time all the time. Like, by, God, that one must have been close to 10 years or something. I don't know how long Healthstone's been around, but I appreciate them for those first few hits. They become like that thing when everything melts in and the carbon doesn't melt out, but it stays in, and then it becomes more of an issue. How do you? Back then I didn't have a torch either, really. How do you get them clean? So I used them all till they were dirty, and then that was the end of my experience.
And that's kind of been my experience with the Healthstone. For me I tried them. I used them actually. A couple years ago, a friend that was traveling with Rob Clark was using it, and so I was like, what is that? Because he was dabbing and it was disappearing into this black mess, and I was like, what is that? It's like, it's a Healthstone. And so I got it, and definitely it's first couple of hits are very amazing, flavorful, but I found that it then caked up inside, and it was very difficult to clean, and the flavor never really came back to its original first couple of hits. I don't know if that's changed or not, but that was kind of my experience with the Healthstone itself, because I tried bubble hash off of it, and it melted wonderfully.
Yeah.
When I tried BHO and stuff on it, then all that just kind of sunk in, and it traps inside the stone somewhere, and I just felt I was just re-smoking like the re-cleaning of a pipe. Sorry, no offense to the guys at Healthstone in any way, shape, or form. I'm just telling my experience. I'm not saying don't like it, don't love it, etc. Just my personal experience. And I've ended up buying a couple of bowls and putting them onto bongs as well, besides getting the actual the pipe itself. And it's definitely, like I said, it was a unique step in my early trials of dabbing before I actually just went and actually got the nail head, because it was very intimidating initially early on, thinking, I have to now get this huge torch and now apply it to this metal and now wait till it turns red hot. Then I have to wait to now that it cools off at approximately a temperature that I hope is right, and then put the cap on and then do the dab. So it was very much an early process, because there was really no steps or process to anyone to show you. I've seen a picture of a guy actually picking the nail head up and trying to lift it just like it was a slide, because there's so much non-education out there, and the dabbing scene has been so new. It's been passed down word of mouth. So I think Ed Rosenthal did come out with a book briefly with concentrates, but there's not necessarily been a step-by-step process of, this is concentrate dabbing. This is this is this. 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 I had to go through step process, and I had access to it. And technology. The first thing I had was the Temple, my first vaporizer.
Yeah.
Volcano. I had, of course, the Volcanoes. Prior to that, but the first e-nail was definitely the Temple. But then they, I guess, went shortly out of business, and they're out of business today, right?
I believe so. Yeah, they changed. They sold the company. Some girl bought it, and I think she might have renamed it, and then it went away. I also got on the vaporizer.
Really that well? Did you find that they worked well?
Which ones?
The original vaporizer. The one you were just talking about. I forget the brand.
Temple. I still have it. It still works. It's actually, I put it in the back room because I've become such a D-nail fan because of its consistency. They had a metal coil to it, so it's not as flexible as the D-nail, one has gone for these different Kevlars.
Yeah, we're talking about it.
The Temple, I got one for Todd McCormick as well, and his works fine. He still uses it to this day, and mine still works, but I have heard people get spotty ones. Now, the original one, the highly educated, e-nail supposedly was the first, and I've seen iterations and tried those, but I've heard those had a high failure rate.
Mm. Well, they definitely birthed a wonderful scene, I'll tell you that. I had a friend who'd been telling me for some time, Clear Domes 420, I'll give him a shout out, and he'll love this, because I guarantee you he's even told this story, like, Bubbleman never dabbed before until I told him he needed to. So he used to hit me up all the time and be like, dude, you need to get on to dabbing, because I was just sort of hitting beeline rips out of my bowl. And go check out 420, Clear Domes 420 as well on Instagram. He's got some beautiful photography. He's an exceptional grower, and he's absolutely like full-blown bubble ambassador, makes the full-blown goodness. So he was telling me, you need to get on this dab boat, and so it was from that conversation, and that was probably only a couple years ago now, that I basically contacted highly educated Temple and D-nail through Facebook. I said, I'm interested in checking out your products, seeing if I like them, and so all I wanted to do was buy a unit. Because I remember, because D-nail was like, oh, we'll just send you one, and I was like, no, I want to buy it, because I want to know what it feels like to pay the money and then compare it to using the product. Not you send me a free one, and then I use it, and then it's not really as accurate as like if I just paid that. So I paid a good chunk. D-nail, of course, was the only company out of those three that even got back to me. They were very professional. They were on the ball, and I think they were pretty new. And so it was good. Relationship was developed, and I pretty much work closely with those guys now. I know who they are. I know what their agenda is, and I know that it's a positive one for the community. And it's easy to get behind and support it. And definitely stoked on. I mean, shit, my D-nail rosin press, they've got me inhaling my phytocannabinoids in a way that's completely different and unique from any way that I've ever done in the past. I mean, they're moving shit forward. Like, when I started with them, they sent me a titanium nail, then they sent me a quartz nail right away, then they sent me ceramic inserts, then they sent me sapphire inserts, then they sent me dishes, silicon carbide, quartz, and sapphire. And each time, it'd be a tough thing to be a customer, because as you buy the new best thing, those guys are like, whatever, man, we are moving this shit forward at all, all costs and no expenses type, or no expenses and all costs. There we go. I got that right. I'm gonna welcome Horatio and Aaron into the room. You guys look. I like that you got the trichome pillows, buddy. That's awesome. Yeah, that was really the first kind of DNA Bubbleman project right there.
Very limited.
Very limited. I got mine right here. And you know, Aaron, when you hold the pillow up, it doesn't really do it any justice because people don't realize that it's like velour. It's like really soft, kind of like, oh, nice pillowy stuff. And you know what? The transfer is so good, dude. I'm a little bright. Let me just unbrighten myself here. So how are you guys doing? You doing okay, Horatio?
Yeah, late start to today. 54 rounds in a row, and eventually you're half hour late and things get sloppy. But here now to smoke it out.
Awesome. Well, glad you're feeling good enough to join us, and you as well, Aaron and Tony, who just came in on the car action. Everyone's in the house today.
Carpooling.
Carpooling in the car. Dude, it's very rare that you even get to be at, like, your house to be on Hash Church anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
But
How you guys all doing?
I think we're all doing pretty good. We've been talking a lot about electric nails and the surfaces that we hit our resins off of, and how, you know, it's almost as important of a part of this entire thing as the growing, the genetics, the pheno hunting, the soil making, all of it, from process to processing to methodology to curing to hands-on, to all the variables from the time you crack that seed to the time you go to puff that resin. We're just talking about this ultimately important process of, what are you going to hit that resin off of? I mean, did you just grow this? Did you just, like, think of how long it takes to find the right beans, to plant how many of them, to find the right pheno, to grow that pheno, to make beans, to sell those beans, to have those people crack those beans and get rid of the males and grow the females and grow the best soil and do all these incredible things, and then just be like, yeah, I'm just smoking off this, super hot titanium nail that basically I have a down stem or a drop down that's got 4 grams of reclaim in it, so every hit that I take filters through 4 grams of nasty ass reclaim. You know who you are out there. I'm calling you all out, smoking that shit through reclaim. What the fuck are you thinking? Clean your down stems and your drop downs and your pipes. It's nice. They look so nice when they're clean. I got a little bit.
It's like cooking with dirty dishes, man. You would never cook a nice meal with dirty dishes. Why would you use a dirty bomb?
And look how many people are on the one part of the stick of getting the best and the taste and the process and the extraction and the cure and all that. And then over here you have like a few companies, and really I have a hard time putting another company on par with D-Nail to seeing who's moving this forward to finding the ultimate surface area for us to inhale our phytocannabinoids off of. I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, you were saying earlier regarding D-Nail, I bought all my stuff retail from them. I do. I could do wholesale, but I love their stuff. I will pay retail. That's fucking fact, people. So, I mean, I love these guys. Because they're always pushing the boundaries. They're always discussing that we're going to take this and we're going to push it to here. And so when I don't hear other companies say this is what we're doing in R&D, most people are like, this is what we have now, wait till you see what comes out in the future. Whereas the damn lot of people are like, oh, that's cool, but check this out. This is coming out soon too, and this is what we're working on. So I've always appreciated the always forward thinking to where we're even discussing this now, light years ahead of anybody else discussing, surface heat, et cetera, et cetera. So
I think it's a pretty important factor that just, not too many people are focused on. There's like 95% of the community, if you put us all together, we are the other end of the stick. But then there's this very small percent of the community that's like, well, how about we figure out the best way to turn it into a vapor and inhale it into our bodies, because people will always, I swear they will always inhale phytocannabinoids. That's never going to go away. It just won't. People might think that it's going to go away and that the future will be all these capsulated products and patches and stuff, and I believe that those will all have a very important role, but inhaling phytocannabinoids will never go away. Rolling a joint will never go away. I mean, what's easier than rolling a joint? You have something to say about that, Aaron? You're a joint fan.
I love rolling a joint. I think it's social.
It is.
Passionate to that person. Don't get me wrong. I love hash too. I love hash also, bro.
Fat, big, fat fucking joints, because it's a statement that the herb is plentiful. Joints need to be large because they need to be shared amongst other humans you're with.
A joint also tells you a little bit. It tells you a little bit about the person who's rolling it too. You know how the roll is, because let me just tell you, there's some people that don't really like to roll joints but still roll them, and they're some of the worst joints I've ever seen in my life. Some people, like
Pinners.
Just throw some nugs in a paper and just press it down so it's like this tampon looking horrible doobie type of deal.
Aaron, you don't like when people hand you pinners and it's so tiny that you just see their hand and you're like, what are you handing me, dude? And then he opens up his fingers for that little white pad and it's still lit somehow.
Or the worst is the guy who takes the full joint and puts it in his mouth and goes,
oh,
right.
That's too intimate for me, bro. That's why literally it was in the 90s. I went to Jamaica in 95, got married there, hung out with these cool Rastas in the mountains and played drums and ate vegan food and just enjoyed life with these guys. They puffed like you wouldn't believe. And their whole mindset on that, not really sharing three things: their spliff, their cup, and their woman. Now, that wasn't to say that they wouldn't, that you wouldn't be able to, be offered a cup or be offered a spliff, but it certainly wouldn't be the one that was in his hand. That's his spliff. It's like he puts it in his mouth. And you damn straight sure are not going to be putting it in your mouth afterwards. That's at least how they look at it.
And if you hand them some herb to roll up a joint, don't expect to get anything back. You're not going to get they're not going to roll it up. They're going to be like, oh, Mom, thank you. They roll up their joint, and then they smoke it right in front of you, the whole joint.
Of course.
And you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess we won't be sharing.
I'm accepting of that. I don't even feel bad when it happens. Last time Kabaka Pyramid came into town, I made sure to go see him and Abishay and all those guys. I brought a Pelican case full of weed that all I was doing was pressing it in the D-nail press. And I opened it up on the bed and I was like, here, I want you guys to feel like this is your herb and that you can just smoke as much as you want. Man, I wished I would have filmed it. It was awesome. Like, man, these, quarter-pound bags of weed, like 4 or 5 of them, just got annihilated. Rolled into joints, beautiful, perfect joints, all unique and different. And I just felt so good. It was like, man, that's how I want to be when I'm traveling somewhere and I'm somewhere that, I'm not as connected or whatnot. To have someone just, here you go. That's what I love to do.
I think the dabbies, as they call it, the dabbies is something that united them in this social aspect of smoking hash, because even with a steam chalice, you just get your bowl. But the D-nail with the mothership, and then having concentrated full melt or dry sift, or even with the terpenes, then it became like a sharing thing, which is something new. So I think that's a really positive and cool thing to see in Jamaica, when you see a trend that we're used to get embraced. Then all of a sudden everyone's like, okay, we can smoke from this digital chalice type of thing, and we can rotate. And interesting to see the difference and embrace.
Absolutely, you were cutting out a little bit there. Quite a few people were asking about Niagara in the chat. I kind of missed it, but it went by when you came in. Aaron, I don't know if you want to mention anything or tell people anything about that, but there's people asking. Yeah, there's people asking.
Well, I was going to say, we were just talking about that lipping the joint, mouthing the joint thing, and you know, we had a meeting up in Niagara Falls, and it was a great meeting, and then we had some joints. Our room faced the falls and everything, and so we were smoking. We had a little balcony, and then the dude that came in from Detroit to have a meeting with us, you know, we hand him the joint, and sure, this is just like, since we're on the subject, I swear to God, the shit was so wet when he passed it back. It was like, oh, I was like, I thought he dropped it into Niagara Falls and picked it up.
Oh.
It was so bad, bro. I was like, so I just passed it to like my buddy, one of my other friends that was in the room. He's like, "What is it?" I go, "It's good. Don't worry about it." And then the dude was like, "No, wait, I think it might be a little bit wet." Like he dropped it in Niagara. It was horrible, but it was. I can't stand someone lipping my joint, bro. That's like the worst ever.
All right, Aaron, I'll put this to you. Have you ever gotten in a situation where the guy responds back, "What are you talking about? You know, weed is something you have to make love to. You got to make love to the joint." And then he completely begins to finish his cunnilingus on your spliff and then pass it back.
Yeah, he can keep that. He can keep that spliff, bro.
Yeah, dude.
You know, you got sharing is caring. I don't want his saliva, though.
Now, what I would like to say in regards to all of this is that the reality is, and it wasn't until I started hanging out with all these Jamaican dudes a lot, when I was smoking cannabis still back in the 90s, that they just put it in my head. They were like, I don't want another man's saliva in my mouth. Like, I don't want to kiss another man. Like, there was quite a bit of homophobia on there, and I'm not homophobic at all, but there is quite a bit of homophobia in that sort of a big part of the Rastafarian culture. And so that whole thing of touching another man's mouth, I think it came from there more than anything. But the more I thought about it, and the more, once you think about it and someone passes you a joint, you put it in your mouth and you feel that it's wet, that's gross. That's just like, I can roll my own joint if I want to smoke a joint and roll you one, and it can still be kind of fun. And I know there's not the passing. I can share a bong all day long, but putting a joint in my mouth.
It's a really simple thing to do, and I do it all the time. You see me, if you ever see me, you know, someone will come up to a group. I was at this party the other night, and they handed me a big blunt and a joint. And there's an easy way to smoke a joint that guarantees that it never has any. Smoke it like a chillum. Just put it between your hand like that.
Yes.
Turn it over like this, and just go.
And here's a question. What about steaming their saliva off the end of the blunt into your hit? Is that something that you don't think about? Or, like, your entire hit is filtered through their saliva?
Part of the reason why I stopped smoking herb is this right here.
No shit.
It's like, I can't hang out with, I don't want to hang out with you and make out with you, bro. Like that. Nobody wants to do that, you know? And so, just put it between your knuckles, smoke it with your own hand, get your own germs, and move on. Just like when in Jamaica they go to the bong, they just put their hand right on the bong. And then you're guaranteed to be able to hang out with somebody without even worrying about it, you know? But then I got to worry about, like, that dude just went to the bathroom. I didn't hear any washing of the hands. I'm not really sure if he's that clean. And now it's not just his saliva and his fingers.
Dude, exactly. Don't even get into all that. That's all I can say is I thank my Jamaican brethren for turning me on to the concept of just, it really sort of led me to smoke all this cannabis, like, afterwards by myself, although in rooms of people smoking cannabis, and then getting to a point where I was kind of over smoking cannabis. Because for me, a big part of smoking cannabis was the sharing. You know, that sharing aspect, like someone had brought up earlier. It's a very social aspect to share joints, and I did have a little bit of depression, almost, like a minor bit, when I started making full melt, and it was like, we used to sit around and smoke like an ounce of herb, like roll up joints and pass them around in the whole room, you could barely see through, and it turned into, we would take like a dab each and just be like almost destroyed. And sure, over the day we were hitting more and more and more, but it definitely very much so changed the vibe of hanging out with a bunch of your friends and the sharing of the joint.
Yeah, so then if you remember, if you started hanging out, like this was in the 90s, the progression for me was as you're hanging out with other friends that were like you that were growing, all of a sudden instead of passing around the joint, then you just roll your own joint, and then you need basically a whole joint to yourself so you can get right, get your head straight. And then it was a natural progression. You're like, well, I'm smoking, a quarter, a half ounce a day. I love smoking it. And then it's just like, how do you make more fit to do that, And I think that was like that progression. Like, you got to get
Yeah, I mean, it's to each their own.
something more concentrable.
Hey, welcome, Todd. And Aaron, when people asked about Niagara, I think they were asking about your Tweed situation more than the wet joint story.
I figured that one.
You're hilarious, though. You're like, yeah, I do want to talk about it. And you tell a story about a wet joint. That was pretty fucking awesome.
Niagara Falls, bro. That's what you guys wanted to hear, right? We're talking about joints and Niagara Falls and lipping, and there you go. Our company DNA Genetics recently teamed up with Tweed of Canada. Tweed is possibly the largest medical marijuana producer in the world with 1.4 million square feet of grow facility. The Niagara Falls location is a 7-acre greenhouse, which only a quarter of it is being grown in. What else? Basically, our partnership entails we are going to help them verify their genetics so they have the best possible genetics in their facilities. We are going to co-breed some genetics with Tweed in Canada to also up the quality of cannabis coming out of these LPs, these licensed producers. We are going through their whole entire grow and everything in buttoning up the system, making sure that there is no weak points in their grow. They, a lot of people have complained about the LPs not having the quality that that the people of Canada are used to, because the people of Canada are used to more home grows, more solid, more smaller operations. As the future gets closer and closer, we have to contend that big business is stepping in and corporate is in this industry. It's what corporations, are solid, good people. I believe Tweed is very good. They're very nice people. They're very good people. They're not trying to take people's rights away to grow their own medicine. I definitely don't want to take people's rights to grow their own medicine away in Canada. In the States here, we're not legally allowed to. Medically, we're allowed to grow, but federally, we're not supposed to be growing. So we all break the law some way. A lot of the people in Canada feel like Tweed and DNA are taking their rights away to grow medical cannabis, which is not the case. We are helping Tweed grow the best possible cannabis for all of the Canadian patients that can't grow their own. that don't have the ability to do that. If you are a home grower, keep growing. Keep doing the same thing that you've been doing for the past 20 years. I think it's you know, it's just what you do. Grow your own. You still can buy our seeds. You don't have to buy them from Tweed. You know, we're just trying to make the medicinal side of Canada have the best possible products, the best possible quality, and yeah, I mean, it started off 6 months ago, and here we are now, and the quality has bumped up a little bit. We're consulting with them to do other things to help their quality go up. Overall, we're trying to improve their whole entire grow system there for Tweed, whether it's in a greenhouse or it's in the old Hershey chocolate factory, which is a giant grow now too. We're just trying to better the medical cannabis of Canada.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I liked about that company was that Bedrocan, who they just acquired, one of my very good friends, Hillary Black, works with them. And I've always trusted Hillary's her ability to find the right people and to sort of make the right, she has a good agenda. Her agenda is very selfless and solid in a sense that she's looking out for more. You know, it gets to a point where, you know, there's a guy in chat right now who's like, I think he's repeated "fuck Tweed" about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and it's like, okay, great, then let's see you grow enough herb for that many people. That's the thing they don't understand right now. There's tons of people even dying in Canada right now with cancers and such that don't have access to the medicine. You know, and it's like, that's the government's fault, not LPs that are trying to play the game that the dispensaries are playing, but through a different platform that's, you know, one of federally legal. It's hard to invest millions of dollars to do something when you could be arrested for it and have it forfeited and taken away. And that's why the majority of the dispensaries you see, there's not any of them that are multi-million-dollar dispensaries. They don't have top-notch facilities. They don't have regulations and standards in place to protect the end user. But yet we don't go around saying fuck dispensaries. So I see in Canada a place for LPs, a place for dispensaries, and you know, if dispensaries were also legal, then people would be bitching that, oh, only they can grow. What about I need to grow for my... So listen, this is what we need to have in Canada, and you're not going to... You can't fight an LP to get it. You need to fight the government, Health Canada. Health Canada is not an LP. They are the beast that controls the licensing at this point. So LPs have to, you know, cower in their shadow and literally do what they say if they want to play the game on that level in that platform. And to just call companies out that are trying to do that, I think it's a little bit irresponsible. It seems kind of whacktivist thing to do when, you know, and in my opinion, the best way Tweed could avoid it is to promote and support cannabis in all forms in Canada. Like if I was a big LP, I would be supporting dispensaries vocally. I would be supporting people to grow their own cannabis. It's hard to grow your own cannabis. That, you know, it's great and I love it, but when you're busy and you've got the father thing and the husband thing and the business thing and the all these sort of hats to wear, it can become a pain in the ass to grow beautiful full melt resin just so I can have 1 gram a day. That's 365 grams of full melt resin. And the amount of beautiful herb that I have to grow and the amount of energy that I have to put into it, well, could you imagine doing that for all of your food or all of the other types of medicines or herbs that you take and use? It would be amazing and impressive, but let's just be honest. The majority of the people cannot do that. And if they cannot do that, then they need avenues. They don't need one avenue like a dispensary. They need a multitude of avenues like an MMAR license to grow your own, a dispensary, many of them, an LP, and you get to choose which one you want to put your money on, and that's what builds the marketplace. The only way to get that is to be pissed off at Health Canada and not to divide and conquer like Prohibition did in the beginning, us from them. We fought and fought and fought and fought to get where we are, to get what we have, and now these people are going to be like, fuck that, they're selling out, it's all about big business. They're globalists. They're nationalists. It's like, holy shit, you guys. I don't know. That's my fucking rant for the day, and I'm gonna have a bong with him.
You know, Mark,
You're gonna have haters. Haters are gonna hate. If you're successful, if somebody isn't hating on you, you aren't doing something right. So, no matter what you do, no matter what industry you're in, and it is frustrating to watch go on, but at the same time, you know, I hear all kinds of stuff all the time and bullshit rumors. Just don't let it get to you. Keep doing what you're doing. We all have our torches. Just keep plodding through in the dark, and eventually we're gonna get to the end of this fucking tunnel. So, fuck them.
you know, one thing that people are quick to jump to conclusions on with the whole Tweed deal with us is they're like, oh, you just bring in your cuttings and you sell them to them and then you're part of Tweed and that's it. Well, a lot of people don't understand the Canadian medical system and the rules and regulations that are in place. The Canada rules give you a window of when you can acquire genetics when you first start out these licensed producers. So we physically have not brought in one thing to Tweed. They've already had a seed stock of ours from when they opened up their doors, and do they have the people in place to do proper selections to find the right phenotypes to supply the patients in Canada? No. Were they going based solely on a potency report that says, hey, this strain has 20% THC or this strain has 5% CBD? That's all they've based their selection upon. And with Don and I, we've never based our selections on a number on a piece of paper. It's never been that way. It's always been about the quality of medicine, what we actually enjoy. So what we're doing is we're going through their entire catalog to pick out the best of the best for the Canadian people. Now, this might not just be in Canada, because now Tweed owns Bedrocon, you know, so what happens if DNA could help improve the quality of cannabis for not only Canada, but for a lot of Europe too that has to get medical marijuana? You know, we want the best of the best. I'm not going to smoke no swag, and I don't expect anybody else to. So if we can help improve the quality of 1.4 million square feet of grow facility, I think it's an improvement for everyone, because everybody's going to win who gets that medicine afterwards.
Excuse me, that was a wonderful rip that I just took there. Trying to read the chat and stay on point with what you guys are talking about in regards to this. People are, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a big divide and conquer. Just like Prohibition was a divide and conquer, to divide a certain group of people over onto one side and put the other group of people on the other side. And now it's happening with legal cannabis. People are like, people don't want to understand that when you have a grassroots movement and you move into something that's getting into this bigger movement, you know, you require an infrastructure. You require infrastructure to do things on a different level that's like, listen, we're not building like a 20-light grow. There's like 10,000 lights. That's agricultural. That's like getting into, like, acres, you said? 7 acres? That's like a whole different ballgame, man. Like, that's, most people would not want the responsibility. All these people that talk shit and say they can grow the best weed and they know everything about everything to know about herb and they're very humble, I'd love to put them in charge of a 7-acre fucking facility. Watch them fucking that Titanic everybody's business. Because you know it would happen. It's not an easy thing to do to grow acreage of cannabis. Would anyone at least agree with that?
Well, and I'd also like to say that at what point do we embrace the prices going down? Because if we embrace what like Northern California wants, which is us to continue this quasi-prohibition, everybody can grow only a limited amount of plants, we don't have equal rights. When I say equal rights, like fucking Jack Daniels has 1,700 acres and puts out 119 million bottles of Jack a year. we wouldn't be allowed to do that under these utopian fantasies of keeping the playing field level. And I think it's crap. I think that people deserve low-priced cannabis that's as good of a quality as organic tomatoes. And technically, like Sam was saying before, it's harder to grow organic tomatoes than it is organic weed. And I think that we really need to embrace this, because it's the only way everybody's going to have access to cannabis is when it's affordable. When I used to debate the DEA and they'd make shitty comments about the cannabis falling into the hands of children, in the 90s, that shit was $400 an ounce. And I used to say to the cop, it ain't even falling into the hands of most adults at $400 an ounce because they can't afford it. Never mind your fantasy of kids getting it.
Not unless you're a Trustafarian.
Well, then you've got a lot of other problems. If you're torching your Ferrari to get a new Ferrari, then we're probably not in the same conversation.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, well put, Todd, for sure. So, yeah, I think it's a good conversation, this whole... Rob Clark said it, or maybe it was Skunkman Sam, but it was definitely from their camera last week or the week before when they mentioned that it really is a race to the bottom. It's like, how cheap can we get it? Well, I'll tell you what, cheap is not going to happen in like $30 million indoor facilities. It's going to happen in greenhouses and in fields. That's not even my fact. That's just a fact. That's agricultural.
7 acres greenhouse, brother. The price is going to drop once 7 acres is filled with dank. You know, I mean, you have your indoor, which you have to pay a lot of money for because you have to pay for your lights. You got to pay for all sorts of stuff. Electricity is the most expensive thing. So indoor, it's a higher cost to produce. But when you go to greenhouse and you can flower under natural light and add some supplemental lighting in there, prices come down a lot, and I think, I think you should see sub-2 prices. I think it could happen very soon,
I think this year, honestly, is going to be the year and we see prices start to really drop because so many people are now actually getting the courage to grow and to take the risk, and they're not feeling like prison's imminent. And I mean, look at the decrease in prosecutions. I was the only person charged with growing cannabis in all of Oakland in 2013. I mean, which is sad for me, but great for everybody else. I mean, nobody else got charged with growing cannabis, cultivating cannabis in 2013 in Alameda County. That's pretty amazing.
Fuck. But of course, you did not slip under that same radar, Todd.
Of course not. No. They actually busted me in 2012 with Oaksterdam, but I wouldn't cooperate, so they just charged me about 13 months, or not really 13, April to January.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to this year then and seeing what everyone pulls off, because it's exciting to think that, well, first that it's like get it lined up. What an incredible thing. Even I'm not sure if someone was just given $10 million and said, okay, you said fuck Tweed, you said fuck these guys, here's $10 million, how would you do it?
Can I just point something out? $10 million wouldn't even cover 1 acre of that 7-acre greenhouse.
No?
People just are uneducated.
7-acre greenhouse is located. That depends on where that greenhouse is located, right? Real estate is all about location. You can't say that universally. That can't be applied. Sorry. Bring us back to reality.
I just think, the price will come down when you have massive outdoor, massive greenhouse.
Yeah, so what's happening today, and I think Mark's analogy to food production is absolutely spot on accurate, which is that not everyone raises their own food in their backyard, and certainly you don't have to raise your own cannabis if it's being provided in a cheap, accessible way. And so what's happening now is a process in economics called commoditization. And what happens in commoditization is, the biggest, baddest guy at the end of the block that can produce a high-quality product at the lowest cost is going to win. And that's basically what you see happening now in Denver and certain areas of the market in Colorado. Commoditization is basically ensuing.
I mean, I'm from the prairies, so we have personally in Manitoba, we had several million acres of good growable land. And so when we started growing hemp in Manitoba, for instance, just our first small experimental field, our test crop was 5 acres. Now it's like, I don't know, 37,000 hectares, which isn't an enormous amount, but it is a lot considering, and it did bring the price down. Unfortunately, the infrastructure isn't there for hemp to manifest all of the commercial products that it can actually be a part of. So it's mostly being used for just a few things, and the majority of that added value that we sold as, you know, the reason we should be growing this product is still not really used in much of the hemp industry in Canada.
That's right. I think the economic driver that we discussed last week is absolutely more than ever, which is going to be the protein in seed oil is going to be the economic driver to basically take this from out of the indoor grow and put it out into the fields into large production agriculture, like row crops are being done now, like soybeans, sorghum, rice, corn. It's going to be in that level of production. Like you said, Mark, the infrastructure and the resources is absolutely going to require large corporations and the folks who have the resources to basically do things on a tremendously large scale that we've never seen before in this industry.
Absolutely. Well, it's exciting times for sure. We'll see where it goes. I think it's going to go for me right into a dab.
I also think it's important, like you said, with the whole divide and conquer. You know, every time this industry is constantly changing in everyone's country, in everyone's state, and we're not in the stage of dormancy. We're in the stage of hitting back, you know, and so every single thing is a push. So sometimes you push an envelope and or window works. Sometimes we sit back and we don't push. They keep pushing in each direction. Then we're never going to get to the final result of what we want. So instead of every time somebody tries to do something by pushing that envelope, like what DNA is doing with Tweed and saying, oh, fuck, I'm that kind of stuff, it really should be quite the opposite. I'm kind of over our industry being this, like, super confrontational, jealous, weird energy that when people look at our industry from the outside, they're like, man, I thought this was all about unity and being able to pat your brother or your sister on the back when they do something great for the overall good of the industry. So when somebody's pushing the envelope and saying, hey, I can better somebody's medicine in countries, in full countries, that's a pretty serious thing. So I just, you know, I think it's kind of sad sometimes people just jump on the fucking thing. It's like, well, I mean, they're trying to put together the best team in the world and take on the biggest grow in the world. So it's like, how do you knock on that, you know?
Well, you don't hear, you know, what's funny is like you hear these people like all talking out of the side of their neck, but you don't hear them. It's like a sports team, okay? Let's use this analogy. When you play for a sports team, the coach and the general manager picks their players, okay? And their player, they want to pick, you know, the best players they can, okay? And you don't hear people like, oh yeah, they, you know, that team sucks, but they have the best players. It's like the coach picks the best players because he wants to have the best team. He wants to have the best chance of the best possible outcome to win the, if it's a game, to win the game. So the way Tweed is formed, they want to work with the best. Okay, I'm not saying I'm the best in the world. I'm just saying, like, at least I know what quality is. So I'm going to bring what my taste is of quality to the game, and that's my position on this team, is to make sure the quality's good, to make sure the selections are the best, and to breed the best possible future in genetics, of genetics. And to to be on the team and to help assemble a team with other players of this industry that we as DNA believe in and trust and know that these people are solid individuals to come play for a team. I think it's great, you know, and a lot of people just don't understand, like, this is a team, it's a team sport, and we're playing for a team. The team is called Tweed, and our job is to help produce the best possible cannabis that Canada and possibly parts of Europe has ever seen.
Fuck yeah.
I think it's great, and I congratulate you publicly. I think it's great, and I've also met the guys from Tweed and stuff, and I thought they were pretty cool. You know, their mission is, everyone thinks it's all about, like, you know, this huge amount of money, and it's like, this industry is extremely hard to make money, and if you're setting something up like that, they're in the negative of millions, and that, people don't do that just because, you know, they think there's going to be, like, all this money in the industry. Well, they do it because they want to do something that they feel proud of, and they can see a legacy behind, and they want to do something that increases their overall moral outreach to people. So people, if there's a demand for medical cannabis, and you can put that into play, I mean, I don't really knock on people to try that. You know, it's amazing our industry still hasn't let go of that. So hopefully we'll mature.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Nick, even though he now split. Just as I said, welcome. He's in Amsterdam right now and closing his window, maybe blowing a rip out because he can't reach his fire alarm that might be too high up in the sky. I don't know. It's happened to me before. When staying at the Hotel Krasnopolski. I'm a little nostalgic about Amsterdam this year and not getting there for November. It'll be like the first time in a very long time that I just didn't go there for November. Jamaica! Who's coming to Jamaica? Anyone? Come on. Hands up, show of hands. Nobody's coming to Jamaica. You guys all suck. Oh my God.
What's also happening with, like,
what
happened with, like, the cancellation of this last cup?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. The city just canceled the High Times event happening here in Inland, California.
That sucks.
That news hit yesterday. You know, I know how it feels, trust me.
They canceled it, and you know where they moved it to? Down here in LA, San Bernardino again.
San Bernardino.
Not to be rude, but they just did that, what, how many months ago?
And it's coming right back up. You know, it's like November, February, February, March is the next cup in LA.
Well, I think the cup in Jamaica is going to be a good one, and I'm telling everyone that. I've got my tickets. I'm going. I'll have my booth, and I think it's going to be a pretty good cup. Good music, good people, good food,
So
amazing setting.
What is it? Is a ganja cup we're calling it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're doing extracts, hash, solvent. I know they are for a fact because I've been asked to judge the solvent lists. So, and I've had quite a few friends contacting me. Hey, I'm going to be in Jamaica. I mean, Dredd told me that he's going with his moms. They're going to be there from the 10th to the 17th. I talked to Sohio, Buddha from Sohio. He wants to come with a big crew and get a place. And so it's starting to come together. I know there's going to be a lot of people missing, but I have a strong feeling this is going to be a good one. I mean, God, it's November. We're all supposed to be in Amsterdam, but we're going to be in Jamaica. That alone, with nothing else, is good enough for me.
Yeah, it's not going to be cold and miserable. I think I'm just going to show up with, like, water bottles full of terpenes and make friends, and then just be like somebody that gets buried by the water halfway with sand and not do anything but, like, smoke terpenes and concentrates with as many people as possible.
Well, there we go. Boom. Boom. Yeah, Cuban just says he's entering Jamaica with him and his girl. So there you go.
What's that about? Is it like a local thing or?
No, there's going to be a local thing that's for local ganja farmers only. But then there's another thing that's sort of the Cannabis Cup that is, yeah, the whole deal. So, I mean, it's kind of just this unsaid thing, right? Where it's like, what are you supposed to, how does my stuff get there? It's like, they got some magical thing. You just put it in and it just shows up on the island. So don't worry about that. It'll all work out.
I heard you turn your entries in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
Kind of weird. So we do the judge. Are you going to be out here, Mark, judging?
Like out in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
I would love to, but I still have to deal with that. I got some sort of like waiver so I can get over the border. I don't want to be messed with at the border. Borders.
We'll just find a place where we can land.
Yeah, right. No, I prefer to do things up and up. It's really just a matter of getting a waiver.
Hey, just give him my name at the border, Mark.
Yeah, they always love.
Hey,
Tony Verzura said it was all good.
Yeah, I think if you drop my name, you should be fine, considering every time I've gone to your country, they both into a room. What are you doing here? Where are you going? Who are you seeing? What restaurant? What food will you eat later? What drink? Where exactly are you going to be staying? How long are you going to stay there? Do you sleep at night? Do you sleep in the morning? A little interrogation.
Damn, Cuban was saying it was 20 grams for an entry, but then they jumped it to 28 grams. So 28 grams of full melt dry sift. Oh my goodness.
Could you imagine? Wait, how about this? This is why I don't enter. So you would have to pay me a lot of money for 28 grams of something like whipped. Like 28 grams is a lot.
28 grams is a lot. I mean, forget about it. 28 grams for full melt dry sift, dude. Like 99% heads. No matter how many products we invent, I shit you not, nothing will ever be more rare than 99.999 perfectly grown, perfectly cured. That is the fucking holy grail. And go figure that
28 grams. 28 grams of that. 28 grams of that quality is that's so much. That's ridiculous. I mean, it would rip my heart out to have to hand over 28 grams of 99% of Cuban's quality. You can't even get like a quarter gram. Like people buy his grams, and then they have quarter grams of his gram, and then they have quarter grams of the quarter grams that are like set aside and pressed with other things.
It's
and
the
then
only,
people are like,
oh
yeah, I've got
I've
got Cuban dry sip. I'm like, you've got a 0.1 gram of Cuban dry sip that we're talking about splitting.
I was gonna say it's selling in points.
Yeah, no, it's super rare. 28 grams of dry sip. It's like, that's insane. Cuban, you're insane, bro. That's out of control.
Yeah. Well, I'm stoked because I get to judge, so I'm gonna get. I get a point.
So much dry sift entered.
Tell you, entering dry sift in Jamaica will be a serious fucking challenge. If you could figure out a way to get it there to stay in powder, that would be the trick, because it's going to grease when the plane doors open.
It's Cake City over there.
It is.
You thought Amsterdam was hard.
Amsterdam was nothing for my hash, but fuck, I wasn't the one keeping my hash in the fridge. Everyone else was.
It's about the right strain. You got to have the right.
Yeah,
There's definitely something to be said for the right strain, but then also like processing and curing that strain. I had a good conversation on the phone with some friends down in Cali recently, and Tony was on the call as well, and a lot of hash making knowledge was being passed back and forth. And you know, it was like really what was talked about was that this sort of fresh frozen phenomena of the young new sort of like pop 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 MTV, I want it now, I want it now, I want it now, I want it now, I want it now. And of course the convenience of not having to properly dry or cure your crop. Who wouldn't want to just like, it's the
Or trim it.
Yeah, it's like you can just microwave this shit, bro, and it'll be fine. So the whole like process of making fresh frozen hash versus drying the product properly and curing it and then making hash with that, it makes
generation.
Yeah, it makes drying the actual hash so you only have to dry one aspect of it, which is the outside of the membranes that are just holding water from just, you know, if you put a bunch of grapes in the bowl and you pour a little water in and then you pour it out, some of that water is going to stick to the outside of that grape skin. That stuff's easy to dry off. But the moisture in the grape skin, i.e. the wax membrane that holds the moisture, that stuff becomes a secondary process of drying, and I am going to put my name on it that I guarantee you we figure it out more than Terps one day, that it is this leftover water, moisture in this non-dried product, and it's why probably the microplaning of the fresh frozen is probably going to be a better idea because of it shredding the head and shredding that membrane to a point where it can actually dry, rather than just hold it in there and wait for a later date to come out and just cake right up.
Mark, it's not just a membrane, it's an envelope.
Yeah,
And
it's
you
a
have
fibrous
to
mat.
get inside.
True, true.
You can't get inside the envelope unless you open it, you know? I mean, that's basically it. You have to open the envelope. It's not just a membrane, it's an envelope.
The only thing about that envelope is we kind of crack the seal when we break the head off the capitate stalk, right on the bottom in that one little area. That's when we just crack the seal. So it can be done. You can dry a head that way, but fresh frozen, you better put like it in a freeze dryer or like some sort of process that you're really seriously paying attention to the moisture content. And there are hydrometers out there that can easily tell you what the moisture content of pretty much anything is. So it's not like it has to be a big guessing game. It can be figured out and done pretty easily.
No, and the compounds are also what we call hygroscopic, meaning that they will equilibrate with moisture in the air. So in a less humid environment, some of these compounds will actually absorb water from ambient atmosphere. And you can't keep that from happening even if you do control the environment, because as soon as you take it out in a non-controlled environment, it'll start absorbing water again. But the reason why, again, a lot of these, well, I shouldn't say a lot of these, all of them, right? All of these fresh frozen runs are butter because there's water in there. I mean, it makes an emulsion because the contents of the trichome are not compatible with water, right? Try cleaning your bong out with water. It doesn't work, right? So basically the moisture that's in there, that's extracted, is the reason why all these things butter out, because it's emulsion, just like the butter that we butter our toast with. Same thing.
Well, I think also what Mark was saying that if you start with the grape and then you let it dry into a raisin, at some point the inside is going to try to get to the outside. And I agree with what you're saying too, Mark, or Mark Scialdone. And but the
it's about time I said something, right?
Yeah. No, exactly on point. But I think what he was saying was the uniqueness of microplaning lightly shaves the heads, giving them smaller exposures to micro points within those cellulose heads that allow them to interact hydrophobic or hydrophilically with the air and moisture around it earlier on, as opposed to as those heads are now sitting there. I think that's what he's saying, and they start to shrink or whatever, then they white out. Is that what you're saying, Bubbleman?
What I'm saying is that when you dry the hash properly, that membrane sort of seems to turn into a little raisin. And I really only know this, once again, from macro photography. If you look at the purest dry sift heads that I have, the ones that are like little raisins rather than like blueberries, meaning like there's no wrinkles in the head. If there's no wrinkles in the head, it's very likely like it's fresh frozen. Like when you take a picture of a living trichome, there's literally no wrinkles in that head, very few. I can usually locate on a plant where a leaf has died, maybe it's been broken or cracked, and less nutrients and less life is getting poured into that aspect, and slowly the leaf loses all of its color and turns into a sort of platinum whitish color, under a microscope anyway. It's really just yellow to the naked eye. And then as you get in, you realize that they can start dehydrating right on the stalk even sometimes. And of course, we've seen it on properly dried herb. You won't smoke herb with big, round, glossy heads on it. It's often that you want to dry and cure it properly and get them to a point where they've dehydrated. At least the capitate stalks have like turned very small, like the same way a mushroom. Very much like a mushroom, how when it's fresh and it's very, it's very big and full, and then it just shrivels up into this like very small little stalk. I don't take pictures of macro bud that's been dried very often because I find it to be not very appealing to the eye. It's just like most people, the way they cure, they're not hanging it and leaving it. They're just like touching it and squeezing it, and it's just like, oh my God! By the time I get to photograph it, it looks like a hurricane has come through and knocked all the heads over to the other side, and over here there's a bunch of other little fibers stuck, and you wouldn't believe how nasty herb looks once it's been processed by humans. I think that most people do not have any idea how much they contaminate their product in their own grow room and in the processing and the handling of finishing up and curing out their herb. That there's something to be said for, touch less.
Mark, is that what you see with fresh frozen too? Do the trichomes just look obliterated?
Fresh frozen, they look pretty whole, like they only look obliterated after going through a microplane, that was a whole other conversation that was being had. People were like, oh, the microplane is shredding the heads, and people were like, no, it's not shredding the heads, like thinking that maybe that was a bad thing, when really it was kind of a good thing, at least for fresh frozen, because it allows those membranes a further ability to dry properly, at least with the help of a desiccant or a freeze dryer or something.
So microscopically, the trichomes look the same as they do on the live plant that they do in a fresh frozen sample?
There you go, exactly. And I have all those pictures. I'll post some after this hash church into the
Yeah, I find that rather remarkable. If you think about it, when water freezes, it expands and it crystallizes because of the hydrogen bonding that's associated with water when it freezes. It forms interesting hydrogen bonding networks which give the architectures of snowflakes and ice crystals and all that kind of wonderful stuff. But ultimately, water, when it freezes, it expands. And obviously, if there's water inside that envelope, right, and that envelope now contains water that's now been frozen, the crystallization of those water crystals essentially can disrupt or fracture the membrane. And I'm wondering, again, if there's any microscopically when you
I think that the
fresh
membrane, I think the membrane itself, obviously, we know that it has the ability to stretch as well because it grows up from a pin head and turns into something, sometimes 140 micron in diameter, a big bulbous head. So I think that whatever's going on in there, we know obviously that there is an elasticity to the wax membrane, otherwise it would just burst more often. It takes an excessive amount of heat, I'll tell you, which I've also macro photography, to start melting these heads. And often what they'll do is the plant will get bumped and maybe one head will quickly touch this head, and as they pull apart, it looks like that liquid gold or liquid metal from the Terminator, and you'll get these crazy splices of, they almost look like cystolith hairs. They're so clear, but they are indeed resin. And the hottest I've ever seen, which was in an Amsterdam grow room, this motherfucker must have had his grow room up to like, I mean, it must have been up over 120 degrees or something to do this, but his heads melted all the way down the stalks. And when I photographed his plants, all it was stalks, but you could tell over top of the stalk was this encapsulated layer of golden and reddish liquid. It was not the color of the stalk. It was trippy. Sometimes they only went halfway down. Sometimes they went all the way down and like drooped out onto the leaf.
Dude, that's not funny. It's so not funny. I bought weed like that and tried to sift it, and then I'm like, why won't this go through the screen? And then I look under the scope, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why are all these trichomes half in between debris and plant material? It's like it was melted on the bud, and then I just ground it up.
Yeah, that's delimiting stuff. That's rosin stuff. You're definitely not using any mechanical separation or any, whether dry sifting or wet washing. That's just a nightmare situation. That's a lot of heat.
I wonder how well that would make rosin, right? That might be actually good stuff to make rosin with.
It is not good stuff to make rosin with because the trichome heads and the terpenes have been partially extracting plant material the whole time because they've been melted. So when you squeeze it off, it comes off as this brown nasty. The plant was stressed and not happy at the end of its life.
Well, isn't it oxidized also now that the wax membrane has been popped?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make a point on going through my photos. It's going to be a pain in the ass because I have so many, but I will find all these photos that we've sort of talked about here, and hopefully our buddy Zach, who has been going through Hash Church and writing down the times that we talk about certain things. This is hugely beneficial to the community, and I got to tell you, Zach, it makes me very happy, and in fact, I want to send you a gift. So hit me up on Facebook if you're seeing this. I know you're seeing this. You got a pen and paper in your hand right now. Hit me up on Facebook, and I'm going to send you a nice little gift from all the folks here at Hash Church and all the people that watch Hash Church that appreciate the work that you do, just out of the kindness of your own heart. That's pretty cool.
The church secretary.
Yeah, just busting it out. So I saw that you were doing more recording on the Hash Church song. How has that been going?
Oh, yeah, it's great. Shout out to my guy Freddie, August Forming, who's been basically lent me his band Spittoon to basically... Mark, we're not just going to stop at one song. I mean, there's just a whole lot of material here that we talk about every week. I got a whole album in mind. I don't have it written yet, but it's all up here in the gray matter. But we're going to do a ska tune, we're going to do a reggae tune, we'll do a rocker. I've just written a song called The Hash Blues. I'll perform that maybe later. But yeah, man, there's just a rich bunch of music here. So we're going to start a new genre. We're going to call it hash music. And for people who celebrate the wonderful world of hash, they need hash music to listen to.
Absolutely. I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. I think we're going to add some horns, Mark. It's really, I got out my trombone and started playing the trombone line there, so I think we're going to add some horns and maybe some lady vocals.
Should we get in touch with the Tower of Power or maybe the Giant Country Horns?
I know a couple horn players up the road here in Philly. I'll wrangle them out here, and yeah, we'll turn it into a nice polished piece of music for sure.
You must have heard the Giant Country Horns back in the day with Fish.
Oh yeah. I know those cats, man. They're fucking awesome. Yeah, Carl Gerhardt and Dave Grippo. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. They, that was a summer tour that Fish did in 1991, where they brought the Giant Country Horns on a few of those shows, and those are some of the best shows from that summer tour, right, Mark?
Absolutely. Yeah, I always thought that, more so than people like, I saw them one time play with the Dude of Life, and I saw Baby Gramps open up for them, and I seen them do a bunch of fun stuff, but really, like, the Giant Country Horns, you can't lose if those guys are showing up.
Yeah, well, the Dude is back writing with Trey, and so the Dude's my good friend Steve Pollock. Hey, Steve, I don't know if you're out there listening, but we'll have to get him on sometime. He's an incredible guy, and Trey just wrote a new song with him called Cartwheels, I think. I think there's a really psychedelic, trippy video to it. If you Google Trey Anastasio Cartwheels, it's a really cool, trippy video, but that's one of Dude's new tunes.
Of Life. Yeah, I saw him in '94, which was when the Giant Country Horns also did a few shows in '94 with Fish.
Yeah.
I saw him out on the East Coast there. I don't know where it was, Maine or...
Yeah, we just had breakfast with him about a month or so ago. We had a nice little sit down with him and Jen Bernstein. So yeah, it was great. Had a great time.
Nice. Tell Don to call me. Nick Bradley, you're out already, or is that someone else that's out?
No, I'm out. I'm out.
How dare you?
I'm out. Family, we got running around to do. It's Sunday. I go to New York tomorrow. I have a meeting in Connecticut with one of the 4 licenses over there. So,
Nice.
and I'm going to see a Dodger game in New York. Yes.
Oh, well, have a good, safe trip. Enjoy the time with the familia. And, yeah, that's just wonderful. Kids, eh?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys all for having me. Mark, I'm sure I'll see you in Canada sooner than later.
That is going to happen one of these days soon, for sure.
Yep. Make those arrangements. Gather the group so we can have an epic winter play date over there.
Absolutely, yes. Round 2 for Whistler Insanity ensuing. You have a great day, brother.
Thanks, you guys. Peace. Go Dodgers.
Take it easy, Aaron.
Later, guys.
Go Dodgers. All right. Man, it's a pleasure to have Aaron come in and share stories with us about what's going on. Those guys are constantly making moves in the world. It's like just one thing after another. They signed up with UCAN. They signed up with Tweed. They're going over to work with maybe people in New York and Connecticut. Good for them. I trust that the work they do will be representative of their brand, that they would never sort of want to lower any sort of bar in the sense when it comes to their brand. Everyone knows when you think of DNA that it's pretty much a pretty solid friggin' brand. Everything you taste from them is like on point, super nice with potency and flavors, and really just all around good dudes. So it's nice to see success finding them well. So I think it's time for a little rosin dab. I haven't had one. I've been hitting dry sift. I've been hitting bubble hash, but it's time to pull out some of that foam. Time to hit some of that Hindu Kush rosin from the West Coast concentrate. That shit is foamy. This shit literally foams like bubble hash. Whereas most rosin tends to just bubble a very small amount and then sort of liquefy, this particular stuff just foams, literally like froths and bubbles like mad. Oh yeah, it looks terp rich. What's everyone puffing on right now, if I may be so bold as to ask?
I actually have been picking up a lot of the 24 karat out here, which is the Kosher by Tangi. The gray area had a very nice sample. What else we had? We had some real good blue cheese, some big Buddha cheese from Bush Doctor. Surprisingly, there's been a lot better cannabis on this trip in the coffee shops than last November. So
very cool. Someone's asking that we talk about the Nick Diaz petition to help out a fellow patient. So I heard about this. It seemed very ridiculous. Nick Diaz was, of course, given a 5-year ban from the UFC for having cannabis in his system, while others have been caught with, I believe, like steroids and like even cocaine, and gotten like less than a year or maybe even nothing, maybe a fine or something. But he got a substantial fine, and he got 5 years. That you have to understand that the place that this guy is in his life, I'm not like a big knowledgeable fighter guy, but I can tell you for pretty much a fact that to take this guy out of the game for the next 5 years would be pretty detrimental to his career as a whole. And it just seems like, once again, like a strange place to see cannabis prohibition taking a shot at a cannabis user. What do you guys have to think about this whole Nick Diaz thing? Anyone?
I think it ruins his career, and I think it's just more cannabis bigotry we're dealing with, and I think it's sad. I mean, these guys can go out and drink their asses off, and that's of no issue. And I'm so sick of the double standard. Suspending him for 5 years proves what? Did he have the intelligence to choose cannabis over alcohol? It's ridiculous. I mean, and the other side, the downside, I mean, I was drug tested repeatedly for years in my life, and you know, the weird part about drug testing, it shows that if you use cannabis, you'll get caught. If you use hard drugs, you get it out of your system because, you know, water-based drugs flush out, so to speak, a lot quicker than these other drugs that attach themselves to fat metabolites and stay in our system for up to 30 days. I mean, in a weird way, I always looked at this like it showed us something too, and it showed us that using, like, you know, a hypothetical that, like, your body is the bouncer, and it has a nightclub going on, and it can see who's walking down the street, and it chooses who's going down the street, who gets in. So when cannabis it comes into your body takes it and stores it like it's a useful thing, but with everything else, it gets rid of it as quick as it can, because, I mean, the more toxic the substance, the quicker our body will react to getting it out of our body. So the safer the substance, the longer it'll hold on to onto it. What the drug testings are showing is that our body, for some reason, and now we're learning maybe endocannabinoid stuff, is holding on to this metabolite for a long time, for a longer time than any other drugs that we're using that I know of.
Mostly because it belongs there.
Well, I think it's serving a very useful purpose to the body. You know, if the body's able to assimilate, you know, THC and CBD and understand what it's looking at, then, and how it uses it. I mean, we still don't understand the subconscious side of our body. I mean, we don't understand exactly how it all works, and you know, that's why they call it practicing medicine, because those guys are just practicing.
Yeah, that's always like a scary thing when you say that, and I think about it, I think, damn, he's right, they are just practicing medicine. Cole Irving in chat is asking, can you explain the pros and cons between the NDP's decriminalization and the liberal legalization of cannabis? In 1 week, this will affect everyone. Well, I wish I had more people in the room from Canada, because it is a fairly important conversation. Not that I have an overabundance of belief in politics and in voting. I do have a feeling that if people are that evil, like selling out an entire country and taking away rights and taking, you know, not caring about murdered Aboriginal missing women and all these things that the Conservatives are constantly getting bashed on for here in Canada, that it seems like, is it too crazy to think that these people in power with a majority of power are also probably maybe going to cheat to stay in power? I think it's very likely. It would make sense to me if I was a big evil dude and I was just doing evil shit everywhere I went. I'd be like, oh shit, there's a vote coming up and I better fucking do a bunch of evil shit so I don't get voted out of power. But let's just say that it actually matters and that you do vote, because it seems like something that you can't be sure of. So if there is an ability to get these motherfuckers out of power by voting, I urge you all to do it here in Canada. And for me, what I'm looking at doing is just making Conservatives lose ridings in as many ridings as possible. So if the NDP are the closest one in your riding to taking out the Conservatives, my idea is to vote for the NDP in that riding. Whereas if you were in the next door riding, it might be a Liberal be very close with Conservatives, in which case anyone but the Conservatives. I'm sure in 5 years we'll be bummed out that we voted whoever we voted into power, if that's even a reality. But it seems like a fairly important thing to have an understanding of. I don't pretend to know the difference between the NDP's decriminalizations and the Liberals' legalization. I think they'll both probably suck, but I'd almost guarantee that they'll suck less than the Conservative version of that same platform. So I know Jerry's rolling around in his grave saying, choosing the lesser of two evils is still choosing evil.
Choosing evil, that's right.
I'm sorry, Jerry, I'm sorry. They're not giving me many choices.
Well, this isn't a sucking contest.
What's that, Tony?
Then we probably want to suck less, right? I said it's not a sucking contest. If it were a sucking contest, then the vote's over. The one that sucks the vote.
I'm telling you, it's worrisome nonetheless. I'm sure you deal with it as well with your presidents and vice presidents and all that shit, and it just seems like a nightmare no matter who gets in. But the bottom line is we really need to get rid of the Conservatives. They are a problem. Literally, our Prime Minister went on the media recently and said that, and he said this, that cannabis is infinitely more dangerous than, like, tobacco. That's like our prime minister.
Right, but the beauty part of that is when they make these stupid comments now, the articles that refuted it were fantastic.
Oh,
and
they were.
Now they get shut down almost as quickly as they open their stupid mouths.
Yeah, but they don't. You know what the problem is it must be the cheating aspect, because you're right. Any normal group of people would understand that these people are not looking out for the majority. They really are the 1%ers. They look out.
They're fooled by their own misconceptions, and the facts prove them wrong, which make them look dumb in the long run. So their publicists should be fired. Period. They can't be making stupid statements like that, and it happens all the time throughout the U.S. government. The Attorney General just made a stupid statement. I forget what it was earlier this week, but again, it's like, oh my God, who the fuck controls what these people say? They just say stupid shit that just is totally refuted by fact on this issue. Almost on a weekly basis.
But you know what, can I say, you know what's funny though, is like I really adore Donald Trump in the sense that he is making them all look like the assholes they are. You know, I don't adore him in any other way other than he's a total fucking puppet that's running around being a complete tool. But what he's doing is showing that it's just a club of rich assholes. It really is. It's really, even the Democrats, not to be completely, it's just one fucking stupid puppeteer holding a red and a blue puppet and just
except for Bernie Sanders
Bernie's cool. I mean, I don't want, you know what's weird, there are a few
golden to anyone, right?
I'm from New England. Bernie Sanders is
the non-establishment president. It's going to be Bernie Sanders, not Donald Trump. Donald Trump couldn't be president. He's unelectable.
Mark, you're not hearing me. Who gives a Donald Trump is a fucking idiot. The truth is that what he's doing is he is exposing it for what it is, which is just a bunch of rich white pricks that are running around trying to out-prick each other and don't give a fuck about your rights. Don't give a fuck about what's really good for society. Don't give a fuck about anything being fair. They just want to get richer and fuck you. And he is so overt about it. And I love that, see, politics had this medium of decorum that made it seem clean, or they tried to pretend. He comes along, it's just ugly as fuck. And that's what makes it so beautiful, because he's really exposing it for as gross as it really is, because that's all it is. They are all Donald Trumps. Every one of them. Mitt Romney, the ketchup dude, all of them. They're all fucking a bunch of just white, rich, fucking ego white dudes. And it's just nothing but bad. And honestly, I see the Democrats as being just as big a dicks. You have people like Bernie that's, you know, so rare. I mean, how many Bernie Sanders do we have in the whole United States Congress?
We only need one.
Well,
right? I mean, there's only one president.
We could dream, man. Hope and change sounds so good, but I'm such a pessimist when it comes to the American government. I just think it's a bunch of rich people just saying, we'll do what we want, thank you.
I don't think it's too different up here, unfortunately, although at the same time, I guess we just have a different, we're a big country but with a small amount of people, and it's still like, I don't know how we even ever got, you know, a federal cannabis program. I mean, that to me, even when that happened, I was in disbelief kind of, even though it only happened about 5 years after hemp. Hemp went in the ground, and maybe 5 years later, Remo applied for his Exemption 56 or whatever his first license was, and he got it. Whether that was in 99 or 98 or 2000, it was definitely around that period that Remo got his first license to grow federally, legally in Canada. It was just mind-blowing. Hopefully we can keep it going, get rid of these politicians that are just a pain.
I don't know what Todd's talking about. I think Trump's a real serious candidate. You know, he's got my vote. I think this guy would be an excellent candidate for running the United States.
Someone in chat just said, not sure why you guys are hating on Donald Trump. That's scary.
He's a television personality. He's not a leader of a country. Come on, man.
Yeah, but a country that watches a lot of television.
With a silver spoon.
He reminds me a lot of Ronald Reagan.
went bankrupt 14 times, pulled out of Atlantic City. Ask the good folks of Atlantic City what they think of Donald Trump.
Hold on a minute. You said he reminds you of Ronald Reagan? Alrighty, folks. Let's go back to a 50s B-roll actor. I always believed that George Bush 1 was the president. He was the head of the CIA and got fired by Jimmy Carter, hired a Hollywood fucking actor to run before him so he could do the 8 years in front of him, and then got in and tried to do the 8 years afterwards. It got 4 of them, which is pretty smart, but considering he ran the fucking CIA, I'm not surprised he got 12 years by putting like fucking Reagan in front of his ass. But you've got to be kidding me, Tony, right?
Yeah, he's kidding you for sure. He is totally kidding you, Todd. Tony is not fucking voting for Donald Trump. That was some good old Tony sarcasm there. Even though
he's just jealous of his hair, that's all.
Yeah, that hair.
I'll throw out a little bone because I'm hearing you guys talk about Trump, and I was thinking, like, I remember when my mother caught me with booze in my closet, and they were all hidden under the Donald Trump board game that I had as a kid, but I had nobody to play with. I always looked at the game and I'm like, what do you do with this? It just had him on the front in a jet, and I just stared at it for like 10 years, and I'm like, it probably teaches you how to rule the world, but I don't have any friends that want to play.
Yeah, I don't think I
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Man, the chat is very funny. Those people, they got some wit over there. Trump, the only guy to bankrupt.
Who was the toy executive who came to a meeting and said, let's come up with a Donald Trump board game? Oh,
just understand, a black child in Canada, a black child in Canada had the Donald Trump board game, so it had some reach.
My God, I was playing with Ouija and Monopoly. What did I miss out?
Ouija and Monopoly. Wow, you must be from the Midwest.
I'm just kidding, man. But yeah, Monopoly, Yahtzee, I forget some of them were, Sorry, the Game of Life, all that kind of crap. But no, not the Donald Trump board game. I feel like I had I missed out on a wonderful childhood experience.
And for the record, Donald Trump hates weed. So, Donald Trump.
All right, guys, I got to get going too. We got dinner, and then we're going to meet Rick at Bulldog for some rosin dabs. So I'll catch you next week when I'm back in the States.
Rosin dabs.
Have fun, Nick.
Yeah, that
was Nick.
Have a good time, buddy.
Thank you guys very much. You all have a good.
That's just not true. I had the pleasure of he did dab some Terpenes.
You're cutting out, Tony.
He dabbed Terpenes. He did shut the fuck up. Yeah, what? It's true. He's for cannabis. 100% for. He dabbed just straight herbs.
I think he's still talking about Donald Trump.
I think so too. I think he froze up for so long that he came in still talking about Donald Trump, because for the longest time it was just his face smiling on the camera like frozen. We've moved on. We're all talking about how to whip up rosin without whipping
He smoked out his working, Todd. He smoked terps. He's into terpene. He's into terpene modulation. I don't know why you don't like the guy. He's an excellent candidate for president.
You know what? He just released online, Donald Trump just released online a new method for whipping rosin hash oil without whipping it.
Yeah, he's a clever guy. He's all about marketing, too. If you tell him anything, he's just going to take your idea and market it, So that's the only thing you got to really worry about.
What are you going to tell us about that, rosin?
Do you want me to tell you about that?
But yeah, but I hope you'll stop cutting out. You were cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, because I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Shit.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, but that can change.
Look, wait a second. This is Hash Church, right? The guy's against cannabis. He could be president. He would totally fucking come down on the states who've legalized. He can't be president. End of story. Everyone who listens to Hash Church, please don't vote for Donald Trump because he's against the weed. End of story. Let's move on.
Wait, let's all say that. Don't vote for Donald Trump.
Don't vote for Donald Trump. I was joking.
End of story.
Sorry.
Wow, Etienne
Well, that was
and didn't say anything.
That was great.
I'm smart enough to know vote for. Thank you very much, and I'll wait till that time comes around. But I don't vote for
politics in church, right?
I think Trump is filming a movie, and he's just like, it's just all about his name and getting out there so he can brand Trump more in whatever project he's going to be doing. It's just like it's not theatrics at this point. It's something else is going on. I don't take it very serious at all, nor would I vote for him. Nor do I think he's organic.
He's not an individual. He's a brand. He's a corporation. He's a bunch of guys sitting up in leathery, butter-soft high chairs up on some Manhattan skyscraper who make all his decisions. He's just a figurehead. He's just a puppet, a goon, just like the Pope. That's it.
Mark Scialdone has spoken. Too bad we didn't have anyone like that upset about Harper. Harper is in control of our country. He has, I would even say, worse than Trump. And currently, like, just like, the thing I heard recently was, like, the amount of, like, water, like, lakes. There were millions of lakes, and now, like, he's just selling them all off. He's just selling the country out from under the people, and it seems like a disturbing pattern that's been happening more and more and more. It's politics are a bummer. What can you say about politics? It's like, what a bummer. Giving any human being power is generally a dangerous game because here's the bottom line. Only sociopaths want power. If you're a sociopath, then you're stoked on having lots of power, but like kind, generous people, they are more into like sharing and like they're not really like want to like I need to control all this, put everyone in line, make sure it works the way it needs to work so I profit the most. That's like sociopathic thinking. And those are the people that become the leaders of the country. You very rarely, like Todd was saying, how many Bernies are there? I'm surprised they haven't put a bullet in that guy's head. You know? I mean, he's saying all the good things. He's saying all the right things. He's like, everyone's like, fuck, I like this guy. This guy seems legit. It's like, how is he alive?
Well, for as long as I've been a little kid, I grew up in New England. Bernie Sanders has been part of the political scene, and I grew up in a liberal family, and we've always admired the guy. The guy always said the right thing, did the right thing. You know, he seems like a really good person, to be blunt.
You want to know how to make rosin butter?
Yeah. I'm getting calls. Wow. People know not to call me. Hash Church? What the heck? Yeah, I want to hear about the butter. I thought maybe you were going somewhere that had a better connection and that we would wait. But it seems like you're in the middle of nowhere, so you're going to have to try and be quick, be precise, and we won't talk.
All right. Well, so when you press your hash rosin out, you could always let it like if you're pressing like say 150 to 180, you know, going a little longer into the 1 minute, 2 minute range is a bad idea if your desire is to get it into a butter state. But if you kept it pretty low and pretty short, 30 seconds or so, and you wanted to keep it really clean and bright, you're doing it off of fresh patties, let's say, then all I do is I spread it back out on the parchment, onto a fresh piece of parchment that's laid out, and then so if you've got like 5 or 10 grams, then you just gently press that out tap it with a little bit of temperature, like low temp, just tapping it with your hair iron so that you can then roll it out. I use a big granite roller, and I roll it out on the parchment, so it's like a big slab, just stuck in a piece of parchment. You with me so far? That's pretty typical of what everybody does. Did you hear that so far? Yeah. Okay. Just like that. So if you've got that, if you've got your typical, you know, you pressed it out, you collected it, you put it between two pieces of parchment, you've got a nice 5 or 10 gram slab pressed out, rolled out, you keep it between your parchment. There's many ways you can do this. Some people are putting it into acrylic and spreading it out thin and trying to put it into a pot with water, so they're like boiling water around the Pyrex and trying to keep it at, you know, 130 to 150 degrees. Instead of doing something like that, it's really simple. You just keep it between the parchment, and you can use like a seedling mat if you're a grower, and your seedling mat's around, it goes up to like 100, 105 degrees. You can use, if you have a D-nail press, and you shut your press off when you want to down temp it. Once it hits a little below 130 degrees, you just set it right on the press. Gently press the top on top of it without any pressure. And every so often, just pull it out off the heat. If you have a heating mat or you're using like a grill, even a grill like a grill that you can even use like you'd make breakfast on, like eggs or something. Just have a temperature read, and you can put a book on top of that. So as long as it has a little bit of gentle warmth, and you just every couple, like say, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes, pull it out, open it up, close it back out, rotate it, and just gently warm it, and it'll slowly just turn into a really nice bright butter. So whether you're using seedlet mat, or you're using a heating element like a grill, or you're using Pyrex, you can just keep it in parchment with a little bit of top pressure like a book, or the top press from your t-shirt frame. It's a really simple, easy way. Just using the parchment and gently warming it up, keeping it between 100 and 130 degrees.
The temperatures being the key thing for sure, I'm sure.
Temperature and time. So like, if you went really fast and hard at it and tried to whip it, you'll lose a lot of quality and color. But if you just let it gently warm up with the parchment paper between two pieces, and you open it like every 3 to 5 minutes, just to get a little oxygen in there. When you do it like your second or third time, you see it like get really cakey, and then you just place it back on the warmth. You just rotate it a few times, and it takes like, I don't know, 30 minutes.
You're saying oxygen. You really mean air, right? You're using air?
Yeah, you just open up the parchment to the air, close it back up,
okay.
Put it back on the warmth, put a book on it. You do that a couple times in 30 minutes, and by the third time,
it would be interesting if you did that in a nitrogen inerted environment and use a nitrogen environment, because a lot of these terpenes are really fragile, especially when in presence of air. And so if there's a way that you could actually exclude air and use like nitrogen to do your whipping, it would be interesting to see if you see
whipping. No whipping in this. If you use nitrogen, and there's many ways you can do this. This is for a home use.
Right.
But like, there's a lot of ways you can do this. But yeah, the whole idea of so if you're whipping, you're just exposing air and oxygen to it. So if you're just opening the parchment and closing it and just keeping the gentle warmth on it with a little book on it.
Yeah, the point I'm bringing up is if you ever have the opportunity to replace using air in a whipping process with nitrogen, I would think you'd want to use nitrogen, because air has got oxygen, and whenever you heat up terpenes, it's like autocatalytic. Just a little bit of air and the oxygen that's in there will go a long way to really start doing chemistry.
You'll never butter it though. It'll never turn into butter. So if you keep it at like 105 to 110, it's going to be bright, very bright butter. Like white, very bright yellow. More on the white side.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then I add terpenes to it later, but just to get it to that butter state that was real flaky, it's like not whipping it. So the more you whip it, yeah, the more you're going to break it down. You're more going to break down the terpene. So this is a really just gentle, quick process. You don't even have to open it. You can just keep it on in between parchment with a book on top of it on seasoning mat, wait an hour, and you've got butter. I mean, it's just you just want to make sure you don't go past 125, 130. 140, 150, it starts to totally change.
Can you smell, like when you open it up? Is it a fragrant process? Because if you're smelling it, you're obviously losing it. But I mean, do you notice at any particular point during that process where?
Yeah, if you go past, like if you hit like 125, 130, you smell it a lot more.
Yeah.
140, 150 that people are usually doing it. That's going to be too hot. So like once you pass 120, kind of burning it off. This is more of like at 100 degrees. Like so, if you put this is the same concept of Gendo's boot cure, if you will. This would be the pocket cure. So if your body's at 98, you put your rosin in your pocket and you're walking around for the day and you pull it back out, you notice the butter's out. Same thing. So it like degrees, and if you kept it in the parchment, it works out really well, and the butter's really nice. Butter, it's complicated. You don't have to like have a whole bunch of rosin to turn it into that. But the more, the better. But if you're sitting at home, that's an easy, fast way to do it. I use a D-nail press. So when I turn it off, I keep a analog thermometer to cool down. I actually start 10 or so, and it just out. Yeah.
A little bit of a breaking up there, Tony. The shitty connection.
What was the last thing you heard?
I'm not even sure because I'm mostly trying to read the chat and make sure everyone's staying on point for that. And then it just started cutting out, so I'm not even.
He was audible for most. I caught most of that.
Okay, good.
Just spread your rosin. Between parchments. Put it on a really low temp on your D-nail. Shut it off, and just let it sit with the top pressure, plate on it, or a bug on the seedling mat. Wait 30 minutes. It'll turn into a beautiful butter.
Butter. Well, there it is, man. Enough people asking me about it anyway. Holy schnips. Oh, wow. Rosin's trippy. It's very, like, hard.
Yeah.
It's not sticky at all, this rosin. I can squeeze it.
This has I don't know if you can see it, 1 drop per gram of rosin butter.
How many grams?
Hard to see.
How many grams?
It's hard to see. There's like 3 or 4 grams that was in there. Yeah. It's interesting consistency. Yeah, it's cool.
Nah. It looks just like a salve.
Yeah. It looks like it looks like a wet kind of salve for sure. Here.
So, Tony, what happens if somebody walks up and puts their finger in that looking for transdermals?
Pretty bummed. You're pretty bummed. I don't think I'm going to have anyone's fingers that wants to, like, except my own.
Oh!
That landed perfectly. Whammy.
You just throw it on the ground?
No, I just landed on the. I'm trying to find this little spot, but it's just. Let me see if I can see this. Okay, thanks. Can't focus on it.
Some butter. All right. Well, we'll get everyone. Maybe we'll add that little mini recipe that Tony gave into Hash Church Facebook group, and you guys can try it out and post your pictures on there to see if.
Yeah. Hey, Mark. Ask Zach if he got that. Did he get that? Is he like writing all this down?
I don't know. I haven't heard back from Zach yet, but I would guess that he is. And if he isn't, he'll be watching it later and doing it.
Somebody go back and scribe that shit. Yeah, absolutely.
We have 50 other ones that need to be scribed as well. So, anyone want to step up? No finger fucking the hash. That's part of the 10 hash commandments. That's what someone just said in the chat.
I will. I'll scribe it for you.
You'll try what?
It's an easy thing. I want people to be able to make it very easily at home because people have been asking. It's not that hard. And then when you add terpenes to it, though, that's when it gets real crazy.
I thought it was going to be like, just make your extract very improperly and then seal it up, and 2 days later you'll have butter.
Well, here's the thing I wanted to ask you, Tony, especially about like the dual packaging system, about having like a little vial along with some hash. Isn't there a way you think you could, before you package it, you can mix both things together at the right ratio and still maintain good product quality through the lifetime of that product while it's out on the shelf and in the consumer's hand, or no? You think the dual packaging is necessary? I mean, I know you wouldn't do it unless you didn't have to. Why are you doing dual packaging? So you have a terpene and you have a hash, and so is the notion is that you can,
one. So the half gram isn't rosin by itself. So the half gram isn't rosin at all by itself. It's already mixed. It's actual terp rosin. So it already is a whipped kind of it's kind of a taffy kind of pull and snap terp infused already. So that's an example of the consistency of what it would be like. So the vial you have, if you want to go to the next level, then you have many choices. Now it's one saying this is what terp rosin looks like and tastes like. If you want to dip that into terps, you can gently do that, and you would have the tastiest, most responsive dab you've probably ever had, and it's extremely strong. Actually use those terpenes to then create at least 5 up to 10 grams of your own terp rosin. So if you took that vial and you dumped it on a 10-gram slab and folded it on top of each other and spread it all out, it would be enough to make that ratio exactly like what is as the example. So it comes together, one, so that you will flavor of a 73, 90, 120 with terpenes along with the terpene boost. It gives you the ability to then make your own, or you can use your dabber and or a little tiny micro dropper and use real small bits of it with other concentrates. You can use your dabber like a spoon dabber and get a little bit and mix it into live resin, full melt, rosin. You can use it on bowls with flowers.
So I got a question, Tony.
So virtually, yeah.
This all came up fairly recently. Were you mixing the terpenes by putting the rosin on the D-nail plate and letting it heat up a little, and then once it was all liquidy, dropping the terpene in like that?
No, not at all. I was creating. So I'm using so all of the mixing and everything else either happens in Pyrex or on a like type of Teflon felt. Not like that stage of showing you how to make butter. So if I made the butter first, then I would add the terpenes. So sometimes using terpenes while it's just like on say parchment, if you did it that way, you have to use very little amount. Because if you use just the tip of your dabber and you put it on like a half a gram of rosin, it's almost like painting the top of the rosin and letting it sit. You just let it sit for a minute, and then you fold it in on itself so that way the terpene, you repress it out and it'll work its way out. And you keep working it and it'll get to a nice where it doesn't really bleed out onto the paper. You want to take the full terpene, so you'll take a little dab of that and gently dip it in the terps that come with it in the vial. So you'll just tilt your vial on the side and you'll just gently do that. You'll get like 10, 20, maybe even more if you're really conservative with it.
I mean, the reason I ask. The reason I ask is because I remember when you first started adding terpenes to bubble hash before we even were doing rosin. And what I noticed was as you were folding the cannolis over and pressing lightly, that the terpenes would always make their way out to the outside of the hash. So why I said, this is what the first time you gave me those terps, what I did was, because I didn't have many, and I still don't, I pretty much haven't touched them because I want to make sure everything I do with them is the right thing to do with them, but the few terpenes that I added to my rosin, I put my rosin on this paper that you sent me that's good to 500 degrees, and I turned it up to a very low temperature. It was like just over 100 Fahrenheit, 150 or something, just enough to sort of like get it from, because right now it's very hard. It's not. It's like it's hard, and it's it's stable as shit. But it liquefies beautifully when I just sit it on the D-nail pad. And then what I found was as I dropped the terpene in, that instead of just staying on the surface and getting folded over and having it squeeze out, I let it melt into the rosin. And then I just took this little Puking Beagle quartz scythe or whatever hammer thing that he made me, and I just stirred it in and then sort of let it be. And later afterwards I did the folding it over and I pressed it up a little bit, and I never got any terpenes coming out of it. And so I just thought that might be a good little method for you to give a shot. You've got more terps than I.
Yeah, no, so there is so I do warm it up. So when I use a hair iron to gently warm it up, and then I use a big rolling pin. And when it's flat and slightly warm, you're right, I do add the terpenes then, and I let them sit for a while, just like you did. And then I let it's almost like it's eating into the rosin, and then I fold it back and forth and things like that. So, to answer what Mark was saying is there is a uniqueness to it, and the reason why it's called, in my mind, it's pairing. So I'm pairing terpenes with paired terpenes and full melt or rosin from full melt. And so what you're getting is combinations of flavors. So the terpenes on their own taste exactly like the plant, and they definitely modulate. And then the terpenes with the hash or rosin in this case, it creates different, unique, totally different, unique textures, colors, flavors. It's something that you're like going to be like, oh, that's so weird. And you could have little same time. And this, what you have, Mark, is times what is in the vial patients are getting. So you're getting 10 drops. Each one of those vials for you is you're able to infuse at least 10 to 20 grams per bottle in my case. What you're doing.
Is he cutting out this bad for anyone else? Yeah, Tony, it's almost it's bad cutting out there. I wanted to hear what you had to say though. It's something about the amount of drops that you sent me. It's just cutting out so badly. We can't. We're gonna have to sort of get someone to talk that's not cutting out quite so bad.
Well, Mark, I'll throw a couple of things around because, like, for instance, when I give you things, they're usually made right before I leave, super late. And you've experienced the terp squish, and at the same time, like when I have time, one of the things like with dry sift is I'll press it out so that it makes the card, like folded up parchment, press it flat, then rub the terpenes on the blank side of the parchment so that I get a full coverage, and then I reclose it and squish it cold, and if you leave it overnight, then you won't get the runoff. But if you're in a rush, you'll push it, adding too much pressure squishes all the terps out. But like if I have an overnight to do it, I can let it sit cold, like in the press, and like give it a quarter turn every hour or so and increase the pressure on it, and you can do it cold. It's just how much time you have. Like for something like LHO where I'm trying to infuse 80 grams, it's very much like you. I heat it up and then I stir it and then I have to go through the process of removing the bubbles. But it kind of depends on how much volume you're working with.
Well, that makes total sense. Thanks for sharing, Horatio.
Am I still breaking up?
No, we can hear you good now.
Okay, I'll try to talk really fast. So the drops that I gave you have 10 drops in each vial. One drop should be able to get 1.5 grams of rosin. So each vial allows you to get, you have 10 drops, so you're able to do 10 times 1.5. Per vial if you have 8 of them. So you'd probably be able to do 150, 140 total grams of rosin from the amount of terpenes I gave you.
Well, you know what? I want to do dry sift, bubble hash, and rosin. So I'll share it evenly among those three things. I have some beautiful melt, some beautiful rosin, and it's just a matter of really making some good sift. And I'll be able to do that. I'll make sure that I at least make terp sift, terp rosin, and terp melt with all.
What I noticed was, real quick on that, you need less drops with the rosin than you do the full melt. 1 drop per gram of full melt will turn it into like, I mean, we're talking very saturated too. You could even go half of that if you just were looking for flavoring and strength. But if you wanted to get it like very wet and hard like a Jolly Rancher, or get it to glaze over and hard like you have, then that means you could use less terpenes. It would be less of a reaction like that. It wouldn't get as hard and glazed over. But terpenes are needed when it's got more cellulose and heads, and it's when it's already rosin, you need less, and a little goes a really long way. Still can't hear me, huh?
I can hear you. You just cut out right at the end of it, and then we had our classic hash church awkward. Whenever we have that awkward thing, that's like me multitasking. I'm trying to answer people in the chat room, and at the same time trying to stay on.
What do you think of the terpenes that he tried versus Horatio's terpenes? Because I know Horatio is wanting to know, and there's 2 different methods, and by the time you get another wave from me, there's a 3rd method I'm working on as well right now. But I was just curious what you thought about the profile of the plant taste in the 2 different ways that you tried it.
Well, the best way I've ever experienced the terpenes from Horatio has for sure been in the terp champagne. I love that as a unique product. It's super, like no one else has ever done that. That's like something that I could see so many people taking and copying in the future. And I told him that. I was like, dude, that's like a product. Like you can make terps and you can make infused carbonated waters with terps. That's like a legitimate product. Even to just show up at events and serve that shit, that's like a money-making venture. Otherwise, I was given 3 types of terpenes from Horatio originally, which I still have pretty much all of them. I've never, I mean, we sipped some of the hydrosol, I think it was, or maybe it was the water solubles. Which one did we sip? Like before the terp champagne, just the ones?
One time, Great Gardner sipped the alcohol, and we wouldn't sip the alcohol, but I think John sipped the alcohol, and we sipped the hydrosol waters.
Hydrosol waters, right, yeah. And then I do still have one little vial of the tiniest little amount of, I think, Pineapple Express that I've never taken it and infused it into products. So what I'll really be able to do, it's a very small amount, I could, you know, do a little taste test or whatever, just have a little, maybe take something like stable like the Lindsay OG that has like a very sort of baseline taste, and introduce a variety of terpenes and let them try it. It's I think that they both smell very nice. Like the one little vial that I have from Horatio, because he gave me 2 bigger ones, the size of the ones you sent, but then he gave me a very small, like, essential oil vial. And when I opened that one, that was, in my opinion, the closest to like that pure terpene profile. The hydrosols and the alcohol were just both strange sort of compounds that were like removed from those terpenes or whatever. They didn't really seem to be the product. It seemed like the product was that tiny little essential oil. I still have the majority of the terps that you sent, because there's so many of them too, Tony. You sent like 8 different flavors in these big bottles, so I'm just like, I have them in my freezer, and I'm sort of just like gearing up to press out some nice hash. I kind of want to make a video of the whole process of showing what I did. And
are these cannabis-derived terpenes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't fucks with any non-cannabis.
No. I just want to make sure. I mean, to get the volume of terpene that you need to get that, I mean, you have to process a lot of cannabis to isolate those levels of terpenes.
Yes.
He's got strain-specific, actually strain-specific.
In the end, the molecules are the same, so whether you get the molecules from terpenes or you get them elsewhere, I mean...
well, here's what you got to consider. We haven't mapped out the 200 to 300 other terpenes, so every time I've given it to a lab, the only terpenes they're testing for the 8 or 12, they give me a 30% purity or a 20% purity with a 70 to 80% unknown terpene profile. And so you can get really close to dialing it in.
And you're paying for those results?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's all our industry offers. Would you like me to bring you some so I could actually get a real deal?
Yeah, what a sad state of affairs that as advanced as chemistry and analytical science today is, that's the results that are supposedly state mandated, and that's horrible. That gets an F in physical chemistry. They have to go back and repeat the lab. That's
the School of Mines.
Absolutely.
The School of Mines found 2 things in it that they've never seen before either. So I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, please send me samples. I'll test. Anyone wants to send me samples, I'll tell you what's in there.
Mark, one of the reasons why I don't like when people say like, oh, well, the terpenes I can derive or I get from online are the same as cannabis. I'm like, no, they're not. The process to extract limonene doesn't just get limonene. It gets a ton of other things that don't make it the limonene in cannabis. When I extract from cannabis, I'm extracting the entire composite of that plant. So everything that came with, let's say the 5 basic terps that they test for is from cannabis, where when I introduce the cannabis limonene from another plant, I get all the potential other oils that come if it was extracted from tangerine, grapefruit, orange, blood orange.
Then they're not pure.
Like analytically pure.
I'm talking about pure compounds. If the compound is pure, the compound's pure. You can't tell where it came from. It leaves no signature behind. If you're talking about something that's technically, what we call technical grade, which is like 85% pure or better, maybe like 85 to like 99% pure, that regime, because anything greater than 99 I would call pure. If I ran an NMR, I would see nothing but that molecule, right? But if anything is less than that, it's not pure, okay? And if you're calling it pure terpenes, it's okay. I understand. They've been purified. That's different. But pure to a chemist means that The only molecule in that vial, in that jar, in that tank, in that bottle, in that train car is that one molecule, and that's it. You know,
that's all that's in the bottle. That's all that's in the bottle.
And run with it. They're like, oh, chemists said that it's the same, and they go crazy and market it.
Yeah.
But so you have to look at this. There's no cannabinoid testing in it, and the only thing that's in the vial is terpenes from that.
My point is, if you compared a commercial sample of limonene to purified limonene from cannabis, if it's pure, if it's greater than 95% pure, they're gonna look the same. They're the same molecule, man. There's no like signature that, ooh, this came from cannabis and this didn't. That's not the way chemistry works. It's the same molecule. Mother Nature.
Here's the interesting thing about chemistry is what we know today will change in the future. So always be humble in knowing that what you think is right could very well lead you to believe differently 20 years down the road when there's a scientific breakthrough and someone understands that there were all these other terpenes we didn't know because they were produced with a specific phenol in the glandular trichome head of the cannabis. It was actually producing a unique terpene. So we don't know in that sense that there are these things that maybe we haven't yet figured out a way to perceive, and I always accept that that is likely the case in all
the common terpenes that we see all the time, Mark, like myrcene and limonene and
Terpenes.
I mean, these are ubiquitous in all of Mother Nature's green plants on the face of the earth. They're not unique to cannabis in any way. There are particular mixes and profiles that are certainly unique to cannabis. If I were to look at the mix of say, mint oils, I'm an expert in looking at mint oils. If I were to look at the terpenes in mint oils, yeah, the terpenes that are in mints are completely different than the terpenes in cannabis. There's a lot of terpenes that are the same. There's caryophyllene, there's a little bit of myrcene, but in the mints you see a lot of menthol, and you see a lot of carvone and dihydrocarvone. These are again ubiquitous terpenes that are present in eucalyptus and everything in Mother Nature. They don't happen to be in cannabis. They happen to be in these other things. But again, if you to go back to Horatio's original point, is if you purify limonene from cannabis, and it's cannabis-derived limonene, and you put that in a vial, and you have orange peel-derived limonene, which is much more abundant and plentiful and therefore cheap and readily accessible to anybody, even people who aren't in cannabis states, that vial of terpene, if it's pure limonene, is the same. There's no difference between the terpene that's derived from cannabis from the terpene derived from the orange peel if it's pure. If it's not pure, and what you're relying on are those subtleties in the hidden notes of the impurities, like maybe there's a little bit of, again, with limonene you typically see, I would say caryophyllene is going to be almost in all of these fractions. It depends on how you purify it, but you could certainly see pinene, you could certainly see some of the other monocyclic and alicyclic terpenes. All of these are going to create the essence that you smell. Like when you smell a grow or when you smell a nugget, you're not just smelling one terpene, you're smelling an ensemble. You don't just hear the violin, you hear the entire orchestra. It's what the orchestra is playing, and yeah, if you listen to one part of the orchestra, it's going to sound different than the other. But
is a violin, regardless?
A violin is a violin, yes, that's the point I was just going to make, Mark. If you take the violin from my favorite music, bluegrass,
I agree with you.
Take the violin from the Bach concerto, and you put them together, a violin is a violin. It doesn't make a difference where they come from.
Then why so much for a Stradivari?
It's pure.
But Horatio, I think the point is that someone who doesn't have access to cannabis can still have access to these terpenes that can then enhance their cannabis experience, however they get their cannabis in their non-legal cannabis environment, by then, you know, using these things together, which is, I think, what Tony's trying to say is that there's not just a single product that these things are mixed and homogenized into, particular flavor of hash where this terpene X has been incorporated with this rosin Y, and now we get a new sort of hybrid product between a liquid and a oil or a rosin, but that these things could be used almost like you use any flavors. You want to put a little bit of cinnamon in your tea today? Try this. You want to do a little bit of this, so you could really flavor your palate how you feel you want to be flavored. If that makes sense.
It comes back to, I guess, because when I discovered the ability to isolate these terpenes, I got really nervous about how much misapplication of our words gets. They look for anything that, like, see, a chemist said terpenes are terpenes, so I'm justified in my actions, and I'm like, wait, you don't understand. The 1% that is off and makes it not pure can completely overshadow the original terpene to the point where you don't know what limonene is, and you've never been in a lab, and you have no clue that the sample is always clear. I see many people showing pure terpenes, and I'm like, they're yellow. I bet they have cannabinoids in them. Your process is a fucking mess, and you're using the word pure. It's like nobody understands the word pure. They just want to hear it looks like. So you have a lot of authority that people try to rip.
Think of crystalline sucrose, table sugar. Table sugar is pure. That's purified white. It hasn't been bleached. It's just been ultra purified, recrystallized many times to get rid of the colored purities. But everything between the sugar cane plant and table sugar that gets there are those less defined grades that have impurities that muck with the crystallization and ultimately the purity of the material. Yeah.
Okay, for you two listening, I stand by what I said in the beginning. They are pure cannabis dry.
Is he cutting out for you guys?
Test it however you want. There's an ensemble there that it represents the plant. So I will get you some samples, and you can test it for everything you want. And you will not find anything else in it but terpenes from cannabis. Did I break up on that one?
Yeah, so I'll finish by just saying that the beautiful thing about NMR versus chromatographic method, so like he's relying on HPLC, which is you take a mixture of compounds and you separate out the individual components, and you understand the mixture based on the individual components. You could put the mixture together based on all the individual peaks that come out. So I use NMR, which is just a very, very different method because we're looking at the overall mixture. And what I'll say, Tony, is that if these molecules are there, they can't hide. You can't hide in the NMR, right?
I'm not trying to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I'm not trying to hide.
No.
I'm more than willing to give you money to prove to you that they are 100% cannabis-derived pure terpenes without any water, any solvent, any chemical exchange, or anything at all done to the plant, period.
I'll go on the record by saying I'll take all your money, Tony, that you want to give me. Please do send it my way.
I know it's hard to believe, but I'm telling you, that's why I use the word pure.
Here it is. When you're looking at an HPLC chromatogram, all you're looking at is this.
I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at how I'm actually extracting it.
No, but I'm saying whoever is doing your analysis has to be looking at this on an HPLC to give you the level of purity that you need to know, right? How are you doing your analysis? If it's an HPLC...
I don't care about how the analysis is done. There's only one way they're doing it. They have a mass spec with HPLC and a GC. That's what our industry has. Yeah. I'm telling you and the rest of the world, there is not any of that used.
Okay. So wait. Let's just try to clear something up. So in an HPLC analysis, you elute stuff from a column in a peak that could be like a very sharp peak, but it could be like a blob, and there could be multiple compounds under there. And just because you're reading one signal in your mass spectrometer doesn't mean that there's other components that are underneath that peak. So the chromatographic methods don't necessarily quantify all the material that's in there if this is the kind of problem that's going on. So what I'm telling you is that if we could use NMR to analyze... So I can tell you that if we could use NMR to analyze your samples, I can tell you what everything that's in there down to about 0.5%. 0.5% is where it starts to get within the noise that I can't really see what's in there. But again, if you want to send me samples, let's talk offline. We don't need to do this on church.
I'll bring them to you.
Perfect.
I'll bring them to you because I want you to.
Yeah, hey, I'm coming to Colorado. I'm coming to Colorado tomorrow, man. Hit me up, dude.
All right. Well, I'll be there. I'll be there next week.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm bringing NMR to this industry, and I can tell you this, that, you know, it is just absolutely abysmal that these are the results that you're paying for, that these labs are providing, that seems somehow acceptable. That's just horrible.
Oh yeah. So that's why a year ago with Mark about the proton NMR. The only way to find out what's really in it is to go protein NMR. So proton NMR. So the
proton and carbon. And carbon. Carbon tells us an awful lot. And it'll tell us, you know, again, let's talk offline about it, but maybe we could actually share these results on a later episode at church if everyone wants to.
I would love to share them because I know what's in them. So that's why I use the word. And that's why I say I definitely know what the word.
Yeah, we'll figure out what this is. This is not as difficult as the cannabis analysis laboratories that are in business to crank out as many results and as many samples as they can get processed. Look what happened to Can Labs. You know, I really do think that there needs to be a whole new level of science and testing in this industry that just seems to be pervasive to it. I don't know why.
Well, it's kind of like you wrote a symphony and somebody wrote you back and said, oh, we have the cello player, we have the piccolo, we have a drummer, and we have like 2 violins, and that's all we're going to be able to play your symphony. So I agree with what you're saying. Like, there needs to be more equipment to say, well, let's hear all of that. So, but I can tell you for those that are actually trying the terpene, I used it as a running joke. I said, yeah, this is a 7-star, and everyone that tried that was like, oh, 7-star, ha ha ha, that's so funny. And I'm like, well, you need to try it together, and it's definitely an awakening experience. And for those that have actually tried it, they understand exactly what I mean. Like Bubbleman is one of them, and there's select people in California that are trying them. But I mean, it defines terpene modulation. If you don't believe in it, try pure terpenes. And when I give them to you to test them, you can validate that, and then we can define it, and I think that would be a standard. So when people talk about terpenes, we'll go get it tested with Mark, and if he comes back and there's nothing in it, nothing at all, then you can say the word pure.
Excuse me, I just had to take a great, wonderful rip of some foam out while you guys were chatting about what you were chatting about there. Terpenes.
My question to you, Mark, was what I tried the Jack Frost or the trying by themselves.
I didn't hear you, Tony. Could you say that again? Did anyone else hear him?
No, I can't hear him at all.
I think we're gonna have to call it a day on Tony. It's too much of Hash Church to give up, to not, you know, we've all given up our days here, and I appreciate him coming in and making the appearance, but it's just too hard when it cuts out every 1 minute. So we're just gonna have to sort of maybe move the conversation to the next level. I'm still gonna try and get the Overgrow show for maybe next week. See if Sub Cool can get in here. See if we can get Bushy Older Grower, Old Timer, and potentially Mr. Soul from the Brothers Grimm. So that'll be maybe next weekend. And for now, what else could we talk about? I mean, we were talking about terpenes, we're talking about resin, we're talking about extracting, we're talking about how we hit these different surfaces. I guess the only thing we really didn't focus on much today was the aspect of growing the plants.
Well, you know, I had somebody contact me and ask me if it was possible that people were selling buds on the East Coast that had been blasted or already run under butane or a solvent, and I had to tell them yes. I mean, I've seen buds that have been, you know, packed into a tube and had a solvent placed over them and then taken out of the tube and dried, and believe it or not, they didn't look, you know, all that damage to the naked eye. Believe you really need to look at it with a microscope, and you'd see that there was still resin on the inside, but there wasn't any resin on the outside. And I think buyer beware is the key. I mean, getting one of those little eye loops so that you can look and see if there's resin on the buds that you're picking up is a really good thing. We used to deal with people bouncing their buds back in the 90s, you know, when we all started getting silk screens, and we all thought that was highly unethical, and it was the same basic thing, except that now they're not just bouncing their buds, they're stealing the terpenes and they're stealing some of the cannabinoids off of the plant before they resell it. You know, this is though what the coffee industry used to do too. They used to resell the coffee beans after they soaked them in propane and butane to take away the caffeine. It's just that it was so effective of taking away all of the scent and aroma and taste of coffee that the coffee industry switched to CO2. So these buds are definitely, I think this is definitely happening. You know, and I'd love to hear what other people think about it.
Absolutely happening in Canada, and the thing that's so much more shocking than bouncing is look how hard they work to purge the oil. What happens to those buds? Dried enough to touch, but really left with the residue, the physical residue that never evaporates. They're literally concentrating the crap from the can that doesn't boil onto the buds, and then they've made the buds super poison, where in the old days they just stole your medicine.
I haven't seen anything tested that has ever been run. I've just seen buds that were run, and it blew my mind. It really did. I was totally astonished that it still looked like pot. It looked like dry pot. It didn't smell that good, but to be honest, a lot of people get shitty pot already, so they don't really have a baseline of what great pot is to start off with.
Well, I don't think it's too far of a leap for us to go out and say, too, that the cannabis industry or the business aspect of cannabis, the prohibition of cannabis, has attracted sort of some shady characters, you know, some characters that maybe wouldn't have otherwise been into cannabis had it not been made illegal and put, you know, swept under the rug, put into the closet, put into the back shed. And so, you know, you have that exposure where all of a sudden, you know, it is like Horatio says, it's one thing to bounce someone's herb, which really, that used to be the worst thing that you could do. But the idea of just blasting and literally getting like 90% of what's there and then just taking that bud and selling it, oh my God, it's just like people need to have a conscience because...
Well, unfortunately, you know, everything's still so expensive, and this is where I can't wait for there to be mass production so that cannabis can get into the hands of everybody at a reasonable price. Sure, you know, that is really what I think this world will be a better place when we can see cannabis as widely used as we see alcohol. Where, you know, there was a great article in the newspaper the other day about that basically the football team at Levi Stadium has a drinking problem. They have over 1,000 beer taps and 2 hard liquor bars in the stadium. And we see all these fights and all these problems happening, and they completely prohibit cannabis. So they're complete bigots about cannabis, but alcohol rules the roost. You can even order beer from an app to your seat while you're sitting there watching the game. I mean, I wish you could order dabs like that. Everybody would be so happy and loving in the audience. It would be so chill. It would be great, you know? Everybody would be getting out of each other's way and helping each other to their seat. What a different world it would be.
Yeah, hey Todd, have you ever seen that women's hockey team that plays at the Cow Palace? There's a woman,
definitely wouldn't be catching.
There's a women's hockey team that plays there, and it's a smoke-a-thon. What I heard is that everyone goes there basically just to really get high. I mean, that women's hockey is pretty interesting to watch. But yeah, I heard that's a real a sporting event, but more of a smoke-a-thon inside the old Cow Palace.
Cow Palace, the Cow Palace is a little bit on a different level than an NFL stadium, and the thing is though the NFL is dealing with all of these problems, with violence and fighting and all these crowd problems, and what the hell would happen if they just allowed cannabis, if they didn't prohibit it? I mean, and how big of a change would we see in the way people, one of the things when I lived in Holland and gone to coffee shops really struck me is you never see a coffee shop bar fight, if you will. Like, you don't see two guys get to such a brawl and like, oh, fuck you. It just doesn't go there. It's like, no. I don't know what it is about weed that makes us all so damn calm and rational, but it just doesn't go there like it does in an American bar. And that's one of the reasons I started going out at night in Amsterdam, because I could mingle with people that weren't all fucked up and drunk and just wasted by 2 a.m. And I thought, wow, it was a whole new world for me.
Yeah, not that I ever went, but I mean, I've seen a lot of the news coverage of the so-called spring break down in Daytona, where it's basically just a beer fest. Where all these, rich kids. I used to work during spring break because I didn't have money, or I'd go on Dead Tour. But all these rich kids go down to fucking Daytona, and it's just a big fraternity beer fest, wet T-shirt contest, driven by the Budweisers and the multinational million-dollar alcohol concerns that want to see their tequila at the wet T-shirt contest or at the volleyball tournament with all the scantily clad women. And yeah, you can't smoke cannabis around there, but man, you can't look in one direction and not see someone totally fucked up on alcohol.
All right, can I just say this, Mark? Don't take away the wet T-shirt contest and the bikini-clad women.
Yeah.
I've gone to spring break. I loved all that shit. Yeah. I think people were a little bit obnoxious, but fuck it, I mean. But
I would say, Todd, the one thing that really turned me off about the GD50 thing at Soldier Field is that alcohol. I swear to God.
When alcohol hit the dead scene in the
alcohol,
we
seemed to be in. I don't know. My wife and I consumed a different liquid that night, but we were in an area that seemed to be overly consumed with drinking as much alcohol as you possibly can. And at one point, this guy who was right in front of us, this guy resembled Iggy Pop in every way, just leaned over the railing and just puked all over the stairs that everyone in our section had to climb up and down. We had to walk through this guy's fucking puke vomit, and it's like, oh my God, there's too much fucking alcohol in this world.
Mark, that is exactly my experience in 1994 at the Pink Floyd concert, The Division Bell. And I was very, very psychedelic that evening on the mushroom. Very, very psychedelic. And I'll never forget the people all around me on the floor. It was kind of foreshadowing for the Bubbleman character, because I didn't realize it, but I was sitting right next to this giant sort of like many 4-story high like kind of cone, and at the top of it there was this big ball, and it was dark and they didn't have any lights on it. It was kind of just ignored. Halfway through the concert, of course, it opened up, and it was like a giant disco ball that was spinning around the audience. It was super trippy. But the amount of people around me that were hammered on booze and like being sick, and like one guy had a big cardboard box that he had full of booze that he brought in somehow, like literally like 40 ounces and 2 6s. And I was just so high on mushrooms, I just thought like, wow, like that's what you choose for your filter, like as your prosthetic for your consciousness to enjoy this concert. The prosthetic that you're choosing is that of the freezing your brain alcohol. Like, wow.
No, Mark. You know what? Just to give a little credit to the people that don't have, a lot of it is financial. And you know what? I have friends in Hollywood that can't travel with cannabis. So when they're on the road, they turn into lushes because they go to the bar and people buy them drinks and they drink, and that's the way it goes. They can't go to a cannabis bar and smoke hash and meet friends, do that. It's totally biased.
I don't compare cannabis to, like, I've gone without cannabis. If I don't have hash and I'm like in a place, I don't just start snorting coke or like drinking.
No, you and I both know that we don't drink, though. You and I would go without. If you took away our cannabis, you and I would be straight telling each other jokes the whole vacation. But the truth is that, unless we found some psychedelics, of course. But the reality is that a lot of people do, though, and a lot of people use alcohol and tobacco because it's fucking readily available and it's cheap as fuck. That's just the real. You know, I wish that everybody could afford the kind bud that I'm twisting up in this thing right now. I wish that everybody had access to the hash that we're dabbing. You know what? And maybe us talking about it will get more people to grow it, share it, make it in the hash, and enjoy it. And that's, I guess, why we're here in the mornings. You know what I'm saying? But more cannabis for the world will definitely make the world a better place.
I always felt that.
Voting for a presidential candidate that is against the weed is not what we want to do, people. We need to vote someone that's out in front of the issue that says they're going to support outright legalization. It's
like Woody Harrelson?
Woody's
not running, but did Bernie even say that? Bernie didn't say he's going to legalize weed.
No. But the point is that Trump isn't. So Trump is off the list. Bernie has not said no. Bernie wants to look into it. When
Clinton said she's not into weed either.
What's that?
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton.
She's not into legalization. Not supporting legalization. They're all drug warriors, man.
Part of a hillbilly dynasty. That's what she is. She's washed up. She hasn't done anything useful. She's out of here. Goodbye. That ain't going to be the first woman president. No way. Elizabeth Warren is going to be the first woman president, not Hillary Clinton. Hillbilly dynasty. That boy got a pretty mouth.
You heard it here first on Hash Church 55. And now it's time for everyone's favorite daytime fun show, Let's Make a Dope Deal. Yes, Let's Make a Dope Deal is about young users who try to parlay their stash and jump up into that game of dealerhood. Anyway.
That was awesome. That was one of their best skits ever, right?
I mean, I like it. I don't know what their best skit ever for me would be. It's like...
Oh, that was up there with them, I think. Well, obviously, Sergeant Stadanko has got to be right up there. Anybody who smokes weed, who grew up in the 70s. Yeah. We had the Big Bamboo album. Todd, remember the Big Bamboo album with the paper in? Did you actually roll the joint? We rolled that joint. I was in the 8th grade, man. That was fucking awesome, dude.
Dude, I put a QP in that paper.
Dude, that was a big ass fucking
joint. It was huge, dude. Yeah.
We would have fucking selfied out if we had selfies back then.
Ounce Plus. It's the Ounce Plus.
Yeah, boy, on that Cheech and Chong days, that was great.
You should give Tommy Chong a shout out for
Tommy Chong has taken a turn for the worse, I do believe, from reading the popular press.
Well, my thoughts are with him, and I hope that he once again uses cannabis to beat his cancer, or at least get it into control so he can live a longer life. We want Tommy Chong around.
Tommy is awesome. I think he is one of the nicest guys in the industry.
Wow, eh?
And I think it's astonishing when people realize that he wrote those movies, he produced those movies, even directed the last movie. He was really not
much higher
intellect. He deserves.
Yeah, a much higher intellect than the proverbial doped out stoner that he played.
Oh yeah, no, you know, actors don't often write the scripts that create their movie careers. I mean, the fact that he wrote Up in Smoke, starred in Up in Smoke, and then launched his whole career around a drug war that was happening with cannabis humor is amazing. And, you know, and I love comedians. I hang out with a lot of comedians, and I think they're like the only truth sayers in oppressive times because they make it palatable to joke about the things that are fucking bothering us, like marijuana prohibition and the stereotypes. And I feel bad when people see Cheech and Chong and see the stereotype and not the joke about the stereotype. Because if you look past Tommy Chong, the character, you see a really balanced married man that has a huge family and he's a multi-millionaire, success by any measure. And I mean, he in his 70s still goes to the gym, works out. He's so mind, body, and spirit balanced. I mean, that's to me what a real stoner is. What Tommy really represents, the creative, passionate, you know, success, that's a real stoner.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And he's funny. To boot.
Yeah, that's for sure. Comedians definitely have over the decades been that very voice of reason in the way of like Todd said, making it palatable, something that just seems to be on a daily basis, maybe even more than annoying us, but just things that are like that we shouldn't even be living with in any way, shape, or form. And it's nice to see some of these guys be able to make jokes about it. You never know how you're going to be received by your audience. So, you know, that's when Todd says he worries about people not seeing the joke about it. Well, that's sometimes the problem when you put things out there and you're like, no, this is how I want it to be received. People just receive it how they receive it. So, you know, I think that more than anything, it's definitely like I can see the joke in it, and I appreciated it back in the day. I'm glad we're not making those jokes as much anymore. Like when I see them on like a TV show or a movie of today, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It sort of is like, really? Like we're still here? Like this was kind of funny in the 70s or whatnot, but it's like, this isn't how it really is. So maybe we should make different sort of jokes about, like even to this day, you'll see, well, Jay Leno busted on fucking his guitarist there, Kevin, what was his name?
Eubanks.
He busted on that guy for weed smoking, like, and as a negative bust for like the whole show. And then when Jimmy Fallon got the show given to him, he started making like weed jokes about like that were just like not like what I would call like a more positive weed joke. Like let's see the joke. Let's make fun of the fact that like, you know, the government's trying to keep small children from using it and that they're suffering because of it. Like that's sick. Let's bring that to light and make them the butt of end of the joke, not like the medicinal aspect of cannabis being flipped into a negative and turned into a stereotype and then modified into humor to sort of unwittingly brainwash the masses into voting for people like fucking Donald Trump.
Have you watched a football game in the U.S. lately? Have you been in the U.S. to watch a football game on a U.S. television channel?
No.
Station. It is all beer and Viagra commercials. It's all pharmaceuticals. I've never seen the pharmaceutical industry more advertised to a demographic. It's beer and pharmaceuticals, and they're all pharmaceuticals playing to the boomers. You know, diabetes too, and you know, erectile dysfunction, and everything that happens when you get old. When I guess you already should have died, but you know you're still walking around, so you need these pills. And you know the pharmaceutical companies are loving it, but I've never seen more pharmaceutical ads ever, and it's weird. You look at the actors in these commercials and you wonder, you know, is this guy really afflicted with this disease? He doesn't look like, he looks just like some normal guy at the store, and they're showing some couple at the store. Meanwhile, they're talking about every fucking side effect that this thing's going to kill you, which is way worse than the affliction itself. It's crazy, man. Crazy. To get patients to actually go back to their doctor and say, hey, I was watching the football game and I saw this commercial about this pill. Please prescribe me this pill because they're advertising to me and I'm a sucker for advertising and I'm such a weak-minded, feeble idiot that needs to go out and buy a case of Bud Light, so please give me these pills that I need so I can go home and fuck my wife.
Is this the standard pharmaceutical commercial that ends with the woman saying, like, talk to your doctor about Zacalax and see if it's proper for you, and then it's like, may cause 12 pages of shit, and all you really catch is like anal bleeding and death. Are these the ones that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm waiting for Saturday Night Live to parody these things because they get more ridiculous and they go longer and longer. They're longer than a minute long, and for a commercial, sporting, you know, football during the weekend, that costs a whole lot of money. So you know these pharmaceutical companies are pumping billions of dollars into their advertising revenues, not advertising to doctors, advertising to patients so they can buy those pills and buy them every day and create that fucking money flow from the insurance industry to the pharmaceutical companies.
I think this is the reason why I ripped the cable out of my television over 10 years ago. Is if you try to even, I'm just watching a documentary on ants, and then I'm like, what, am I having my self-esteem busted down about me and my wife? I thought I did good last night, and now I need to consider doing better. No, television is about attacking human emotions and then giving some half-baked solution that can be bought to make it all go away. No, I guess that's the reason why sports and Viagra go together. You got all the men holding their dicks and no women around, and what a better time to bust them down.
Yeah, I need to get my dose of certain television programs like Bill Maher. I love Stephen Colbert. I certainly was a big Jon Stewart fan. Jon Stewart was not art entertaining or imitating life. It was, I don't know, Jon Stewart completely blurred the lines, I think. I think what he did was absolutely needed. And, you know, I don't know, in this day and age where the guy who looks best on TV becomes the president, you know, you can't just pull the cable out and forget that all that shit's going on around you. But, you know, I'm raising 2 kids, and you know, we got TV all around our house. We can't avoid it, but I guess the thing that you could realize is that there's, like the internet, there's all kinds of content out there, and it's about what kind of content you take through that cable in your wall. And there's all kinds of good stuff. There's, you know, National Public, you know, programming and great stuff that's out there. But the presidential debates and coverage of news, you need a television in this day and age to stay on top of things, on top of what you see on the internet.
You know the TV's on the internet now. You just get it in blips.
Well, yeah, but you know what, though? I mean, I think that none of us like the brainwashed, stupid TV of the 70s where there was 3 channels and just dumbness. But, you know, now video is a very powerful learning medium, you know, where people can read books. You know, we can listen to audio cassettes, or who has cassettes anymore? It goes to show how old I am. But, you know, we can listen to audio stories. And fucking Jack Harrow used to, every time we drove, he'd buy all these audio fucking books, and we'd have to sit there mile after mile listening to all this fucking stuff. But it was always intelligent.
There's a program on
video, and I think it's powerful, man. I mean, I think that our 2 movies, The Union and The Culture High, honestly reached more people in a shorter amount of time than The Emperor did in 20 years. You know, no hitting on The Emperor. I love the book. I'm glad I worked on it, but how many people pick up books and read 200 pages now? You know, but to sit them down in front of the TV or the video for 2 hours, they can handle that, and they can walk away with really good education. So, you know, I just think it depends on what we watch, you know, and we just don't eat junk food with our mind.
I'm in the same boat, and that's why killing the cable is so essential, because anything you want to see, you can acquire without their commercial.
No, that's Mark. That's not necessarily true. Like, and I'll give you an example of that. This month, there's an exclusive on Showtime alone. You have to have the pay Showtime service. It's part of our cable package. So
dude, it'll be on a BitTorrent.
Watch something called Electric Church, which was a hidden Jimi Hendrix film that's absolutely fucking bonkers. I recommend everyone who's a Hendrix fan.
It'll be on BitTorrent, is what I'm saying. It'll be downloadable 100%. 100%.
Watch it right now on demand, right?
Presidential debate, the Mike Tyson fight from 19 whatever, like anything you want to see, anything that you think you have to pay for, you don't. And more importantly, you don't have to expose yourself to their commercials, because I'll tell you, from someone who, I never stopped watching shows and movies, but what I did was I cut my cable, because what my cable was doing was it was getting me to watch more TV than I needed to or wanted to. And when I was done watching the good show, I would sit through like an hour of shit, just flipping and trying to find something good. And that is the danger of television. That, along with the programming, you cut that fucking cable and you just take it into your own hands. You download everything you need and want in a perfectly safe environment, BitTorrents, boom. That's what I do. Yeah, I fucking did.
Anyways, Electric Church. If you're a Jimi Hendrix fan, it's was a movie that I guess was lost for a couple decades and now has resurfaced. It's awesome. If you like Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, I'll download that for sure. Absolutely.
Mark, you have to understand. Look at me from Canada.
The union has never gone after anybody for violating our copyrights.
I would hope
it is available on torrent, so is the Culture High. But you know, it doesn't hurt to also pay for content at times.
Absolutely, and you know what people are saying in the chat right now? They're like, you're condoning pirating? And I'm like, no, bro, it's just that I condone free information. It's why my show and all my videos are for free. And then my next question was like, would you rather pay for it? Would people rather pay for Hash Church, or are you guys happy to download it and watch it for free every week?
Different paradigm. Different paradigm, no. I mean, when we go out to make a movie, we have to raise $1 million to do the production. It's not the same as us sitting around and shooting the shit on YouTube.
I know. We've had this conversation a multitude of times. Everyone knows how you feel, and everyone knows how I feel. I just love the idea. Like, for instance, when I want to support a band, man, I'll go and I'll pay their overpriced price for their T-shirt, and I'll pay the overpriced price for the ticket, and I'm happy to make them millionaires. But to buy a shitty album for one good song when I can just, you know, buy it for 99 cents or download it for free to see if I even like it, well, that's a system I can get behind. Richard, I don't need to self-promote my products, or, you know what, the show isn't about that. It's someone saying in chat that I should, you know, I wouldn't charge for Hash Church or YouTube, but you should self-promote a bit more of your products. And I'm like, to me, if I do that, everything that's special about this show in particular would just fall apart if I just started selflessly, shamelessly promoting my own swag or whatnot. So I don't talk about my own shit very often on here. People know about it. They can Google it. They can ask me a question if they want. I'll answer. I don't want to waste valuable church time on promoting my own company. So there it is.
Well, truthfully, I think what's different between this and a lot of the other internet cannabis shows is that they're building their shows based around sponsors, and that's the whole point and why they're doing it. They're not doing it because they like each other and they're sharing information and learning from one another. They're doing it because they're trying to fill space in between commercials, and I think that that's why a lot of them, you know, aren't as successful.
Yeah, it's true. When I hear those commercials, I'm just like, oh man, that just doesn't seem legit.
Would you really like a bell to go off where it was like a audio track that just plugged every last drop of everything, and like you can get our sponsors guests at Big B's truck stop, and also find all of Horatio's extracts at the gas station. Like, it always comes on in that commercial voice, and then the show becomes, how do I skip to where they come back on? And that's not a cool experience.
I agree, dude. It just takes away the validity of like what you're trying to do. And for me, I just was building my channel. Initially, I thought, yeah, this is a great way to sort of promote my products and the methods and get that education out there. And then it slowly became more about sort of promoting other people that I could shine the light on, and then the traction grew to the point where it was like, do I just continue to do these shows all about Bubbleman's world, or does it like turn into something bigger and better? And I think that Hash Church is that bigger and better thing. That it's because of all you guys being a part of it and all the people watching that it really sort of resonates and is this self-sustaining machine, at least for now. That you know, we have this incredible group of people. There's 550 people chatting away in the YouTube chat and watching around the world, possibly maybe more, because maybe they're not all sitting alone and watching. They might be sitting with groups of friends. It's fucking cool, and I appreciate all of you guys for being a part of it. It's a cool thing. I hope lots of people come out for the Cannabis Cup. I know the panel earlier was saying that they're not going to be making it, but I hope a lot of you people that are watching, if this is a chance that you want to go to Jamaica, truly, trust me, this is going to be a good experience, regardless of how well the cup goes, which I think it'll go fine. They've got permission from the government to have amounts at the hotel. I guess the hotel somehow acquired some sort of permit. They're going to be allowed to have the amounts. It's going to be a very unique thing that's never happened before. And for someone that's been going to Cannabis Cups for 20+ years, I don't want to miss it. I think it's going to be cool. I'm surprised you're not coming, Todd. It would be awesome to have you there, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
bring the ladies.
I understand what you're saying. There's a little bit of me that's craving a little more sophistication than High Times has been delivering for a number of years.
Yeah, but it's not about high times as much as like for instance, we're going to try and do a Legends of Hash dinner. Now, I don't know if that Legends of Hash will be altered slightly to, for someone like Bob Marley, it would have to be more like a Legend of Cannabis. And but we want to have a party there, and for me, it's all about just the great group of people going there. If High Times nails it and they get it, then awesome. But I'm not holding them to it. I just want them to bring all the people and have this great group of people. It's a small island. Negril's a very small place, much smaller than Amsterdam in that sense. We will be concentrated in a very unique way that. Plus, Jamaica is just it's a wild place, man. There's really nowhere else on earth I've ever been like Jamaica. I can't even really overemphasize how unique the whole culture is from like. For me, I love the food. I love reggae, some of my favorite music. I love the people. I love the cultural differences. I'm a big fan of Jamaica. It's no big surprise there. If you want to
I think you're right about us being them concentrated. I mean, in Amsterdam, we always were very spread out, except if we were at the Milk Bag for awards or PAX for the expo, and it did feel like we all had somewhere to go, a different coffee shop, a different friend's place. It's what saved the last Cannabis Cup, because if that had happened anywhere else, it would have screwed the whole event. But because it was Amsterdam, everybody had something to go do when there was no expo.
And it was always like something that you went and did like cold and kind of like quick and like, got your hoodlum jacket on. It was, there was that November is not the greatest. Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, is not the best time to go and have an event, like generally. And the Cannabis Cup was during American Thanksgiving, I don't know, what, 24, the 26 years, or every year maybe? Third week in November?
It was during Thanksgiving, because that's when Steve Hager got his vacation time, technically. It was the worst time to do a cannabis event in Amsterdam because most people shut down their gardens in the summer because of the heat and really grew their best shit in the winter. So spring in Amsterdam would have been the best harvest time to really enjoy the good cannabis. As someone who lived there, I can tell you the best buds come down after winter.
And to enjoy the springtime in Amsterdam after a cold, frigid winter is a lovely thing. The flowers coming out and the whole vibe of nicer. At least to me.
Oh, I agree. I was just there weeks ago and it was great. I mean, Amsterdam when it's warm is just culturally such a great city. Everybody's so friendly and it's so multicultural. I love it.
And a lot of people that might not understand this is that they get an enormous amount of tourists flowing through that country from all over the world, like really over the top. It might be like a higher number than most countries in Europe. I don't know personally, but it's high. And it's in the summertime. You go there in even May, June, July, August. It's incredible the diversity of people that you can meet in Amsterdam in those months. Well, are we all paused out, gentlemen? Is that a 3.5-hour hash church for today, Sunday, October the 11th? Couple more weeks and it'll be heading off to Jamaica. Apparently my flight is on Sunday, which is a problem because I can't miss hash church. So I might have to rebook that flight, or maybe I just start hash church at home and then leave to the airport and tune in as much as I can before it's time to take off on the plane there. So thank you guys all for coming out today. I do appreciate your time, and short but sweet. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.